get into it tonight, party people. Welcome back to Calling All Beings. I'm your host, DJ, along with my brother who just returned from his Southwest vacation. We haven't even heard what kind of craziness he got into out there, but I'll tell you what, we have some special folks here tonight that I said I just got to talk to once I saw what they was getting up to. So without any further ado, let me let this man speak, because it's been a while. We did 1 or 2 shows while he was on vacation. Money Nathan back in the building.
Good to be back, guys. I did get a chance to catch those shows, so great job while I was out. Had no doubt you guys would crush it, so well done. Yeah, I did. I mean, 2,000 miles of driving, American Southwest road show with the kids. It was a great time. It was hot, very hot, but it was really fun.
It's never, cab is never as much fun or as cool as when you're not there. But we did our best to just kind of stay active. You know, one of our guests would say, you know, stay in the gym, keep shooting those threes, make sure, you know, you don't lose your stroke. With that, our next co-host and OG, I mean, this girl get into it whether or not you want a spirit kicked out of the bathroom, whether you want your Bigfoot baby babysat, so that way, you know, Bigfoot daddy and mama can go out and have a good night. Or if you just want to, like, you know, get abducted by a UFO, Deb's down for all of it. How you doing, homegirl?
Well, my jaw's been on the floor a lot today. So, you know, it's been kind of an exciting day in UFO world. So last couple of days, actually last, you know, few months, maybe last few years, it's been kind of an adventure.
Yeah, I was talking to Christopher Sharp today, Deb, and I thought there was nothing happening, nothing was going to happen, and man, was I so wrong about that, given where we are now. With that, let's transition over to our resident Bigfoot expert, 2-decade researcher, and just dope all-around analyst of anything that has to do with the unexplained. What's up, Matt?
Oh, you meant me.
Yeah.
It
should have been obvious.
What's happening?
Nothing, man. It's good to be back on air with you two guys. I wish the other two was in the building, but you know, before long we will wrangle them, so to speak, now that Nathan's come from the Southwest. But Nathan, so I saw these guys, all the stuff they were putting out. They look cool. They sound cool. They have the Skinwalker Ranch thing on lock. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, man, I know it.
And so I said, man, wouldn't it be cool if we did a roundtable, a fireside with these guys, so that everybody could bring a topic and we could just get all up into it, hit any of the 3 topics. There's no wrong topic to have. And so they accepted, and that was so dope. So
that's totally not what I thought we were doing. I thought we were just sort of having an on-air fight with this other podcast show.
The Jets and the Sharks. It's not about like that. If we're in the bar right now, we'd be fighting right alongside them, man.
Change my material.
Bring it on, baby. I'm going to take a bar stool. You go near my friends from All Things Unexplained. So without further ado, what we're talking about here is the brothers and sisters from other mothers and other misters. So put your hands together for Mississippi's own Dr. Mounce, CJ, and Smitty!
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Can I get it?
That was amazing.
Amen.
Amen. Welcome.
As Smitty and I grew up on old school Memphis wrestling, I'm talking Jerry Lawler, I'm talking Ric Flair, I'm talking Jimmy Superfly Snuka. So we ready for, you know, off the turnbuckle, loser leave town match if we have to.
I'm with you. I know all of those wrestlers that you're talking about. That was my era as well, although you look younger than me, which is slightly upsetting, but, you know, not a big deal.
He just has a really good diet. I promise. He's much older than he looks. It's all the cucumbers and apples.
Cucumbers going out my ears here.
Stream up close. It's not as impressive. We've seen it.
Well, the cabbies would basically say the same. As good as I may look tonight, I look much worse in person.
True.
But that's okay. You know, I work with what I've got. Anyway, I want to say hi to Julie in the chat. Julie, what's up, homegirl? Thank you for doing this for us, for manning the chat and doing the wrench duties. I forget what you call that. Mick, I don't know what you're doing up at this hour over in the UK, but thanks for being here, brother. I'm going to tell you guys, Mick has sent me some video and some audio of him with the spirit box. And there is some very audible answers that he gets from the spirit box. And the video he sent me showed an entity sitting next to him on the sofa. It's really wild stuff, right?
Yeah, it is.
He getting into some business, but you know what? I'm being that I jaw-jacked with Tim. I want to turn the first question over to my brother, the co-conspirator of this joint in fun, entertaining, and interesting talk of the unexplained. Money Nathan, take it away.
Thank you, sir. All right. So do we want to jump into roundtable? Or we want to jump into a little bit of...
I want to find out about these guys a little bit.
I do too.
I heard about some sand volleyball and CJ, and
oh my
I want to
goodness,
see what's going down here.
Some Top Gun stuff right there. Exactly.
It's just like that.
Yeah. Well, that's what everyone who plays sand beach volleyball. That's the only image I have of it.
All the guys wear jeans and
Yes.
slow motion,
slow-mo,
Great
glistening.
music.
girls wear slow-mo bikinis.
Mm-hmm. Epic. Well, yeah, let's jump into this. So, I've been thinking about different things to talk about, and I wanted to get because I know you guys come from a unique perspective. You tackle a lot of interesting topics, just like we do, a lot of paranormal stuff, UFO stuff. How do you sort of stay grounded in your own lives, like when you have this interest? It's like, do you feel like you have kind of two sides of yourself, the public side that is out in the world and the podcaster side? How do you navigate these spaces?
I'm gonna go first.
I
got wrangled into this. I was not a believer in any way, shape, or form. UFOs, Bigfoot, whatever it is. Didn't think about it. Didn't grow up talking about it, learning about it, anything. And Tim begged me to kind of jump into this endeavor with him. And I came in as a skeptic. And the first person we interviewed, I was sold. I mean, I truly believed the experience that this individual had. There were some people that have come on our show that I begged Tim not to have on our show. I thought we were going to lose all credibility because their story sounded just so wacky. Mm-hmm. And then they came on and I fully believed them. So for me, I'm a mom. I've got young kids. My hardest thing is being this podcast host of a paranormal show about UFOs and aliens and then having like kids over for play dates. Like I'm the UFO mom. Mm-hmm. How do I get my friends to trust me with their kids? And so every once in a while, someone will be like, oh, I hear you do a podcast. I have to feel out the room a little bit like, yeah, I do. It's about UFOs and alien abduction.
What's that?
Yeah. So it is tricky for me. And some of the people we've had on like Travis Walton, and there's been these crazy stories. I can't sleep at night afterwards. I really feel like something is surrounding me. Like I've opened the universe up and all of a sudden
interesting,
I have all of these spirits and things following me. So it's been hard to walk the line for sure.
What is that behind you, CJ? No.
Stop it. Don't play with me, Smitty. Don't play.
All right, Nathan, you want to get Debs in there?
Or I'd like to hear from the other guys.
Please. Good one. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Well, I tell you what, CJ hit the nail on the head on some of that stuff there as far as staying grounded. And we were talking about this the other day, and y'all, we've got a lot of kids between the three of us, and CJ and I have kids very similar age, and things get real weird at a play date when UFOs come up. And so that kind of helps keep you grounded there. And then I know for me, like I consider myself, always kind of had a foot in multiple worlds. One, Smitty and I both grew up in rural Mississippi in religious households, right? Mm-hmm. But yet we're also, educated, and we consider ourselves academics. And so, it is hard having a foot in both worlds, but what we have discovered, and I've never really realized this until we started this podcast, is that there truly seems to be some sort of thread that connects all of this. And I mean the spiritual, the paranormal, the quantum, the macro, the micro, the universe, the supernatural, Bigfoot, UFOs. We've seen it on our podcast. It's not something we have created. It's not something that people who have something in common or know each other bring to us. These are separate people, separated by by decades and separated by location and stories, but yet something weaves all their stories together. And I'm not quite sure what that is, but we're kind of on a search for it. And that helps keep me grounded. Also, I grew up Coast to Coast AM fan. And I was always a big fan at how they went about, especially Art Bell, how he went about his interviews with folks, right? And it didn't matter the story. He treated them, just matter-of-factly, like, hey, let's hear what you got to say, and with genuine interest and respect. And that's how we treat all our guests and all the stories we hear. And I think that also helps keeps you grounded.
I love it. We're coming back to that topic later. I can guarantee it. So great to hear that feedback.
The internet, right, Nathan?
Oh man,
runs
the thread.
between all.
I love it. Yep.
I'm kind of like Mounce. I just, I kind of include some of the stuff. It depends in certain parts of my life, and I exclude it from certain parts of my life. But my kids at school think it's really cool that I'm a podcaster. Of course, some of them think I'm a little crazy because of that UFOs and Bigfoot, but we have some subscribers there at our high school that listen to us on a regular basis. And, it's like he said, Unsolved Mysteries was one of the big things that I remember watching when I was young. I would love the parts where they would have the UFO abductions and the other paranormal things. That was my favorite part of Unsolved Mysteries. Some of the rest of it kind of gave me nightmares, but those didn't. His voice could give you a nightmare, I think. So,
Robert Stack.
Yep.
Hell
Robert
yeah,
Stack.
just the music, and man, there's no chance of going right to sleep.
And then the X-Files, man. The X-Files was really what drove a lot of things, especially for my generation, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, CJ started out as our Scully, and now she's become our Mulder. So
I often fail in my job, so this is not surprising.
I want to say just thank the two of you just right off the bat for being educators. Those are heroes to me. And in fact, I'm heading home to New York in a couple of weeks, and I'm going to have dinner with coaches / teachers from my high school, and I graduated in '85. So you guys have a big impact on kids, whether it's writing books or being in the classroom, as both of you guys have done. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
absolutely, and CJ's been a teacher too.
CJ, what's up, homegirl?
Amazing.
Oh, yeah.
So
Nearly killed me.
So okay, so you're not in teaching now.
Well,
Okay.
I'm raising 3 young children, so I feel like I'm teaching every second of every day now.
Very true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huge job. Deb and Nathan both can relate to, and Matt as well has how many children you have in the house, Matt? Is it just one or more?
We're down to 1 at this point, unless you can count the dog. I mean, the dog is probably the biggest child that we have. But yeah,
Matt is so funny, man. This guy is so funny. He can make the mundane sound funny. I really just, not to cut off Deb, but I really just kind of think the audience would be cool to hear just kind of how you guys met, because Tim told me this story, Dr. Mounce, and it's kind of cool because I love sports. I love basketball and volleyball, like what you guys were doing. So please tell that real quick if you guys would.
Sure. Well, Smitty and I kind of grew up together. I hate to think how long it's been since we first met, right, Smitty? It's been
at least 20 years.
At least 20. Maybe over 20.
Oh,
and let's not actually cease the calculations. As a matter of fact, before we get too deep in it, but Smitty and I were both teaching at the same school together. And he taught history, I taught math and some PE, and I was coaching, and he was coaching, right?
I would say teaching math was loose.
Hey,
I'm kidding.
You come up with the junior high basketball game plan and 7, lesson plans for math. Something's got to go, okay? But something's to be less than 100%. But Smitty and I actually bonded over cryptids because we have some local cryptids there in Mississippi. And I was aghast to find out that a cryptid that I had heard about from a dude. So I get this, y'all. I didn't tell DJ this. I worked with a dude at a shirt factory named Buck Rogers. All right. I kid you not, Buck Rogers. Dude drove around in a car, had Christmas lights hooked up to the outside that, that lit up to the base of his radio, that kind of guy. Played softball with us. Dude batted cross-handed, like, you know what I'm talking about, cross-handed.
Yes.
And played in jorts and could stroke the ball. I'm like, how do you do that in jorts and cross-handed? But
Wasn't he barefoot too?
Yeah, barefoot.
It's sounding like Bo Jackson all of a sudden.
Men's adult softball barefoot. But Dave was telling me at the shirt factory one time about him and his grandpa. They were out going catfishing, and with this was at work, by the way. And Possum Head Man jumps out, knocks him off the path, right, and almost kills his grandpa. And he just keeps going back to work. I'm like, wait a minute, hold on now. You can't just go. You can't just go back to packing shirts up. Possum Head Man jumped out, and Buck Rogers was dead serious about this. And years later, sure enough, Smitty and I both, realized we both know about Possum Head Man. Not just us, but a lot of other people in the community, right? And so we kind of bonded over cryptids. And then that was in Mississippi. I moved to North Carolina in 2010, and CJ and I met at sand volleyball. For whatever reason, my neighborhood has a sand volleyball league that's been going on about 20 years. And CJ, of course, grew up in California. Her dad was a volleyball coach, right?
Yeah. My dad.
And player.
Very good volleyball player. He's very tall. And I heard a lot growing up, like, your dad's so good at volleyball. Why aren't you? But I thought I was pretty good, but not compared to him, I suppose. So yeah, I roll up from Southern California up to my first day to play volleyball. And here comes Tim with this very thick Mississippi accent. He's lost it, or I can understand it a lot better. But at the time, I was just aghast that somebody from Mississippi could be as good at volleyball as he is. Tim is quite a good volleyball player, but I couldn't understand him. Every time the man would talk, I was like, one more time, can you put that on repeat? I just have no idea what you said. And then, of course, he'd talk about things like Possum Head Man and chocolate biscuits and gravy, and think that I'm like, lost. So we instantly, I think he probably didn't know too many people from Southern California. I knew no one from Mississippi. We sort of dug into one another to learn more, and here we are.
It's like this GIF I saw the other day. It said, GIF. It said, when I get nervous, I speak more Southern. I'm like, that's so true. I do that myself. I don't even know I'm doing it. But Smitty and CJ and I had always talked about, we started talking about doing a podcast together, and there never was a right time, but then COVID hit, and then boom, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, like out of nowhere, all these video conferencing technologies just exist. Like, did Zoom exist before 2020? I don't think so, but boom, there it was. My kindergartner's on it. We're sitting around the house. My son ain't learning anything except how to fish better. And we're like, it's like now or never, right? Like, we're gonna make this podcast thing happen. And credit to Smitty. And I want to backtrack real quick. CJ talked about volleyball, and somehow I grew up in what I call the redneck volleyball capital of the world. Thaxton, Mississippi. Don't know why, but the gym that doubled y'all on the weekends as a wrestling arena, and during the week as a volleyball, league place. The smoke would be thick in the air. I'm talking about old school. Like, these dudes just love volleyball. I don't know why, but they did. We just played volleyball, man, all the time. But credit to Smitty. He reached out and got our first, person to come on the podcast with us. And he was involved in one of the most famous UFO cases of all time in rural Mississippi, where over a dozen law enforcement officers.
It was actually 24.
Over 24 law enforcement officers, and he was one of them. And he was only comfortable going by Mr. Billy on with us. And he's getting kind of older now, but CJ and Smitty could tell you this guy brought it. Like, he was so honest, so sincere, and you could tell. We realized, man, what have we gotten ourselves into? This goes beyond just talking about it. And I mean, when you start hearing the traumatic real life experiences of folks, it hits you in a different way.
I was going to say there are a few topics that are more interesting to podcast about than this one, because you kind of really never, especially if you're three-pronged as your show is and ours now is you're never going to really run out of topics. So and Matt, Matt and I have discussed this because he's interviewed so many Bigfoot witnesses over the span of 2 decades. He also has, physically seen them himself on more than one occasion in Oklahoma on outings. And by the way, I'm moving to Georgia. I don't want to say what company I'm going to work from, but I'm going to be close enough that we can actually go on a Bigfoot outing. You guys that are in North Carolina, we can go do an outing since I'm going to be relatively close.
Yes. Hey, you know what, DJ? There's a great Bigfoot museum in North Georgia.
Yes, sir. I've driven past it, and because my wife and pets were in the car, I didn't stop and go there. I regret that. But now I'm going to have a chance to go because I'm going to live there, and I'm going to have a chance to. It's just a great Bigfoot state, so we'll be able to set something up. All right, so let's give Deb and Matt a quick question, then we're going to jump into the fireside chat.
Yeah, so I heard someone mention a spirit box, and I also think all of the paranormal is connected. So I was just wondering if anyone has ever tried to use a spirit box to reach NHI, also known as non-human intelligence. And I don't mean Bigfoot, I do mean aliens, guys. Let's just say it.
Has anybody here done that? Matt? Matt?
Do you really think that I would ever try to do that?
I think you
No,
well,
no shot. No shot.
Matt grew up in a haunted house too, so just, be aware of that. He had to deal with a lot.
Here's my spirit box. This is how mine works. Hey, y'all there?
DJ, could you tell us more about a spirit box? Is it sort of like the old school, Ouija board?
I think Deb is going to actually be better to explain it. I've seen it on a couple of documentaries, seen them use it, but I'm not sure about the technology or frequency they're using. Deb or Nathan, could you school us up on that?
It rapidly goes through all of the radio channels. I think, there's some debate. I think some people say AM, FM, doesn't matter. The point is, it just essentially sentences are formed by words being picked up from those channels. And I mean, it's rapidly going through. So for a sentence to come out is somewhat amazing if it makes sense. I can say that I've tried to use them without much success before. But some people think they're amazing, and things can happen with them. So it's a tool.
Well,
and
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say Mick has that audio, and if he authorizes me to share it, I'll share it with you guys, and you can just listen to it and listen to him having pretty decent conversations with a couple of different spirits on that. So more to come on that. But did you have something, Matt?
I'm just kind of curious how y'all decided to go with this particular category for a podcast, where you decided that you did want to start a podcast.
That's a good question. Well, Tim is the one who got us started. Tim's actually the author of several children's Bigfoot books. So they're Bigfoot themed children's books. And during COVID, he was supposed to go to like a Comic-Con type of event, and it got canceled, of course, because everything got canceled, and it went online instead. And he was given a 2-hour time slot to fill. And he thought, how in the world am I going to fill 2 hours talking about my children's books? So he asked Smitty and I to come on and be kind of Bigfoot panelists, to ask questions about Bigfoot, which of course at the time I knew nothing about. So I came with all kinds of questions like, is it just one Bigfoot, or are there multiple Bigfoot? Things that of course I've learned a lot about since. But we had so much darn fun. We filled 2 hours, no problem. And we thought, okay, let's do it. This is what we're going to do. We're going to go forward from here and do All Things Unexplained. So Bigfoot, UFOs, aliens, electric voice phenomenon.
Yeah, my favorite. Yeah, my favorite question at night came. We didn't tell anybody this, but it came from CJ's parents, who wanted to know: can Bigfoot get COVID, and if so, is it decimating their population? So that was my favorite question of that particular night. And I'm glad you mentioned electronic voice phenomenon because, Dale, back to your question about the spirit box. As far as I know, CJ or Smitty or myself have not communicated with aliens via spirit box, but we had a guest on our show who shocked us with what we considered a revelation. And I think most people, when they hear about electronic voice phenomenon, they think of ghosts, spirits, ghosts, souls, what have you. Well, shout out to electronic voice pioneer Gary Arnold. We had him on the show, and we just asked him, well, who are these folks you're hearing on the EVP recordings? And he said they're aliens, they're extraterrestrials, and that just caught us totally by surprise.
And for CJ's mom, I actually wouldn't be surprised if they had very close physical contact with a Bigfoot and a human that had COVID. I would not be surprised, which is why you guys saw that when they sent those lunar landers basically over to Mars. I mean, the amount of cleanliness that they kept. I mean, that they were fully masked, gloved, just head to toe in suits working on that because they said we could introduce a biological malady to that planet that doesn't exist. And if Bigfoot has not, obviously they don't spend a lot of time in physical contact with humans. Albert Ostman notwithstanding, and you guys can, if you guys haven't heard that story, that's a good one. Then obviously you wouldn't want to be in that. Matt, would you like to take that question from Duncan that's in the chat real quick? You're best equipped to answer this. So.
Oh, geez, look at that. Is this a paid question? What's going on here, man? We just talked about this.
Duncan, thank you for the check, but no, go ahead, please.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know nothing. I mean, somebody just recently posed the question, what do you think Bigfoot is? Which that question gets asked all the time. And if we break it down in the simplest terms, based on eyewitness descriptions, leaving speculation and theory and all that stuff out of it and just going with the traits that mostly everybody says are there. I mean, we see that they're covered in hair, so they're mammals. They fit the description of a primate based on our categorization of things on this planet. So in that sense, we kind of know that they're a primate if we're right about them being from here. But then recently somebody kind of posed the question about, well, what if they're aliens? There's been a lot of theories about aliens doing, hybridization with humans and, the whole cattle mutilations thing, some kind of experiments going on. Is it possible that maybe at some point in time, aliens created this hybrid creature that we come to know as Bigfoot later on? It's an interesting theory. And there's a lot of reports out there that do sort of tie Bigfoot sightings in with UFO sightings, strange light sightings, especially orbs. Orbs are seen all the time in the Bigfoot community. So it's an interesting theory that I've just kind of started to look at. It's not really something I'd ever thought about before, but yeah, I would say why not? Because there's certainly how there's nothing else on this planet like humans. There's really nothing else on this planet like Bigfoot either. So it's an interesting concept to think about.
Thank you for that. That's a great answer for a topic that, we know that there's a biological component to that. That's been, verified over, people say that sightings aren't data. I'm sure you guys would agree that enough sightings from enough credible people, it forms, it is data at that point. So they know that, but we don't know what's beyond that. We just don't know. We've talked, I think Tim and I talked about the ghost hypothesis, but we can get into that later. I don't want to take up too much time. We got to start the fireside. And Nathan, do we have a fire going behind Smitty? I hope so. There it is. Thank you. He can make it happen, baby. So why don't we, since we haven't heard as much from Smitty, why don't we start with him and then we'll go clockwise, around the table.
Okay. I just wanted to, in the last few years, we see where the movies Conjuring have been really big. What is your opinion on Ed and Lorraine Warren? Are they the real deal? I mean, this is the only guy supposedly a demonologist that's recognized by the Catholic Church. Are they real, fake, or what's your opinion?
So the way this will work, because of the way we're set up at this moment, is it'll go to Tim first, and then Matt, Nathan, myself, Deb, and CJ. So take it away, Tim.
So Lorraine, I think, is the more interesting of the two.
Nathan, if you
in my
switch
opinion.
up, man, it's gonna.
Oh no! What do I do?
No, you didn't do anything. Go ahead.
Is it still my turn?
Yes.
Yeah.
I got you.
Well, I think Lorraine is the more interesting of the two to me. You know, she's inspired a lot of characters in a lot of movies, including one of my favorite movies, Poltergeist. And they say that Lorraine actually inspired, if you remember, there were two female paranormal investigators in that movie. One was the more serious, like academic research paranormal investigator. And and that represented one side of Lorraine, right? The side that took everybody serious and did legitimate scientific research on the paranormal activity. But in the movie Poltergeist, once she realized, oh snap, there's a giant headed demon in the closet that just kidnapped, Betty Ann or Betty Lou, what was her name? One of those. Or Sue Ann. Anyway,
I know what you're talking about.
Carol Ann. She's like, I gotta get some other help too. And then she brought in the short, exorcist lady. I can't do her voice, but this house is cleansed, that lady. And she represented the other part of Lorraine's personality. But I gotta tell you, and I'm gonna reveal something here tonight about a connection to Lorraine, and she at one time got into some missing person cases, right? And some were positive, some were not so positive. But I started doing a little research on a very famous missing person case from May 25th, 1999. Carl Landers, and y'all may be familiar with this story. I believe it's part of the missing 411 caseload. Carl Landers, 1999, hiking on Mount Shasta with two other friends. And if you're familiar with Mount Shasta, there's basically no crevices, nowhere to fall off, really nowhere to go. And Carl Landers was on the way up, and he never came back down. And they never found a body. And they launched a massive search for Carl Landers. Well, so I actually filed a FOIA request for the information they had in that case, because it's fascinating me right there. A story just cannot end like that. A man just cannot disappear off the face of the earth and there be no explanation. So as I was digging through this FOIA request, I was reading the local police notes, and they said that they had found a flyer for a psychic, a paranormal psychic investigator in their hotel room, right? And that the friends had actually requested the police at some point bring in whoever was on that flyer. And I got to thinking this was 1999, and the only person I could think of that was really famous enough to be brought in on a case like that was Lorraine. Now, I can't prove it, and I don't know for sure if she was brought in on the Carl Landers case. But I just thought, we talked about something that binds all this stuff together. Another thing we discovered with our show is synchronicity. And somehow everything just seems to have synchronicity out of nowhere. We're not even expecting it. We don't think it's even going to be there, but it is. So that's my interesting take on Lorraine. I think she's quite an interesting character, and I'm shocked to see where she comes up at.
Matt.
Yeah, that's a tough question. Honestly, I think the Warrens did an incredible amount for the paranormal, getting it kind of in the spotlight a bit, pulling it out of the shadows, no pun intended. I think there was probably, like anything in related to any of these topics, there was probably a little bit of folklore surrounding them. I think there was probably some stuff that was based in facts and truth. And then I think a lot were just rumors and stories that kind of built them up bigger than what they actually were. I know that there's, whenever it comes to that particular couple, you know, the opinions are extremely polarizing. You have people that are just devout believers and followers in them, and then you have people that think they were complete frauds. I've seen evidence over the years to support both sides of the argument, and I guess we'll never really know what the truth is. I did find one story pretty interesting about Lorraine. She was, I believe, at some sort of paranormal convention or something, and somebody asked her about Bigfoot. And she said that she didn't know anything about Bigfoot. She's never had any run-ins with Bigfoot or anything like that. And then the next day, she came back and said that that night she had psychically communicated with a Bigfoot from her motel room and had this whole story about that conversation that took place telepathically with the Bigfoot. Take that for what you will. But I will say this, I don't think no damn Raggedy Ann doll is haunted or going to kill anybody. That's just my opinion. But I wouldn't mess with it.
That's a good one. Money Nathan.
I love it. All right, so I have to confess, I mean, I know a little bit about this, but I generally stay away from a lot of the haunting kinds of stories because I don't like them personally. Like, they just kind of bother me. Not that I don't think that they are real. It's like, I don't like watching scary movies, you know, that kind of stuff. But I do know, and I don't know, some of you may know this, but Dr. Diana Pasulka was a consultant on The Conjuring. So that's sort of an intersection between the UFO community a little bit there and the poltergeist paranormal community. I think she was consulting on aspects of like Catholicism and exorcism, that kind of stuff. And clearly the Catholic Church, at least these big parts of the Catholic Church, take this very, very seriously and have for a long, long time. So, I do think there's something to it. I also think, kind of on the topic there of, what you brought up, Matt, about Lorraine and, being genuine or fraudulent, or, the debate there. I think when you're into this kind of world and you're into it long enough, it's hard to be perfectly impartial, right? So there probably is a little bit of gray area there where real things happen, and then also there's embellishment or that desire or wish fulfillment for things to happen, where you kind of spin that yarn and it gets the tail grows larger and larger over time.
I actually heard several interviews of people who inhabited homes. They're older now, that Ed and Lorraine worked in. The current sort of exorcist in chief in America for the Catholic Church is a guy named Carlos Martins. Father Martins is the guy when the crap really hits the fan. He's the guy that they call. And one of the homes that was also in Connecticut, as is obviously the Conjuring house, there was a police detectives were thrown against the wall. So there was some violent behavior with that poltergeist, and the owner of the home, she said she was there with her children, said that Ed and Lorraine were able to handle that. And that wasn't the only interview like that I've heard. I've heard more sort of negative things about their son, who just did something with Netflix last year called 28 Days Haunted, I think, where they sent teams of two, they were teams of 2 to 4, I believe, into homes in different areas of the country. One of them was North Carolina. It was a country store, I believe. And the idea was that in 28 days, they should be able to get an evil spirit to leave that place. So I don't know about the son, but in my mind, there's some significant evidence, not the least of which is the Amityville Horror House, which I've actually seen that one up close. I'm trying to remember. George Lutz was the father there, and a lot of people did not want to go in that house after entering once. after Ronnie DeFeo committed those murders there. So I believe there is some truth to it, and I think, like Nathan said, there may also be some embellishment beyond that. But I've heard enough witnesses that say Lorraine and Ed, who are obviously devout Catholics, I think everybody knows that, came in my house and they were able to help us rid the home of the spirit or dull the anger. I don't remember. It's been probably about 2 years since I've seen any of those documentaries, but there are several people that speak on their behalf, not the least of which were officials in the Catholic Church. So I think there is some truth to it, and there probably is a little embellishment as well. Debsy.
I have to admit, I have not seen The Conjuring, but I have seen Lore on Prime, and it really freaked me out. And there is an episode on there about dolls, and it gets into possibly a psychological element to people's response to dolls. So the mention of Raggedy Ann, I was like, you might want to check that out. It's just a really interesting theory. But I guess my thought is, if anyone is coming forward and just throwing the whole kitchen sink into their story, like the whole kitchen, the whole house, the whole city, and they keep embellishing, then I immediately, like, I have my guard up. But I feel like the community itself is generally the best at policing that. Like, we can tell, we've seen enough of what it really looks like when it's authentic. So that's my 2 cents on that.
CJ.
Well, I'm with Nathan here. I hate all things scary. I don't watch scary movies. I mean, even some Disney movies are too scary for me, to be honest. Like,
See,
my
Dr.
kids are the
Mounce.
same way. My kids are.
This
they
is
don't
one of my
like
warm-up exercises. It's called the
everything.
"Come at Me, Yo." What?
Yeah,
Come at me,
yeah.
Holmes.
I know. So I haven't seen any of these things, nor have I really heard of these people, to be honest. I tried to do a little research today, but I will say that in doing our show, we did a whole series on ghost stories, right? We had people tell us their ghost stories, true people, our friends, people that we know. And I cannot believe how many people that I know have had these experiences, either with loved ones that have passed away or with a house that is haunted. Or I saw that Tim wrote in the chat, never build a neighborhood over a burial ground. My in-laws' former home in Rancho Bernardo was built over a burial ground of Native Americans, and their house was haunted. And we've heard so many things. So I truly believe that there are these things happening out there, so much so that I went back to California recently to visit family, and my grandfather had recently passed away, and I was staying in the home where he passed away, and I could not sleep. Not that I thought anything bad would happen. In fact, if his spirit came back to visit me, I'm sure it would have been pleasant and lovely, but I was just so shaken by all of these stories. So I am certain something was happening that they were involved in, and possibly some embellishing going on, but fun to hear the stories. That's for sure.
No doubt. It's they're very interesting topics, and that's why I think we're all doing these podcasts about it. Can't wait to do more paranormal. But please, Dr. Mounce, go ahead with your topic, sir.
All right, my topic, it kind of involves Lou Elizondo, and he's in the news a lot lately. He kind of got the ball rolling on what I would call this latest wave of UFO, UAP disclosure, right? And of course, formerly involved with ATIP, I believe, and he kind of, released some UAP, UFO videos, and we associate Lou with these military videos and that firm connection there, scientific, kind of impeachable evidence for UFOs and UAPs, right? But I was listening to this one particular Lou Elizondo interview, and this is I'm glad Smitty went before me, because actually the Lorraine story and The Conjuring, believe it or not, y'all, segues perfectly into this Lou Elizondo clip. If we can cue that up, the Dr. Mounce topic clip.
That were certainly against this effort, and only because of, again, their philosophical belief system. It had nothing to do. In fact, I had one I remember the conversation very well. This is a person I respected tremendously, very, very senior person. He's told me, he said, Lou, I want you to stop doing this. I said, okay, sir, I certainly can, but may I ask why? And he says, well, we already know what it is. Now, at that moment, I honestly thought maybe it was our own technology. I was running up against some super uber secret sap, and they were telling me to stop. And I said, okay, sir, so it's ours? And he said, no, that's not what I'm saying. And he said, he asked me point blank, have you read your Bible lately? And I wasn't quite sure where he was going with that. And I said, well, sir, I think I know what it says. Where are you going with this? And he said, well, then you would know that these things are demonic and we should not be pursuing them. Yeah. And he wasn't kidding. That's exactly how he felt.
So this is a Pentagon. This is a Department of Defense official saying, stop looking at UFOs because they're demonic.
Correct.
Oh, there's the guy that called me and tried to get me to dish dirt on Lou Elizondo. What a great guy. I said, yeah, get lost. After talking to Nathan, but yeah.
And you know what? That shocked me, y'all. So aliens or UFOs are demonic. What's y'all's take?
Okay, so I wrote down the order to make sure I got this right. So you guys check me. We got a couple, 3, 4 educators here. So Smitty, Tim, Nathan, Debs, DJ, CJ. Does that sound right?
Okay.
Matt goes after Tim.
Yeah, I have Matt next. Yep.
Okay. So Matt after. Okay, then Matt. Thank you. Got Bigfoot sitting right there. I'll get rolled up in my face. Okay. If you would, sir, please.
Yeah, that's actually something that I was thinking about just earlier in this conversation. It's also something that has worked its way into the Bigfoot world. It's always been present in the paranormal world. Biblically, the Bible frowns upon ghosts and spirits and says, hey, don't try to communicate with those things. They're demons trying to fool you. There's no such thing as a ghost. Most recently in the Bigfoot world, you see a lot of people starting to go that direction. There's a very popular podcast out there that I won't mention that kind of plays off that whole thing. Excuse me. And then the Dogman stuff is really popular now. It's certainly gaining momentum, and there's a lot of people that bring up demonic talk with the Dogman. Whenever it comes to that, trying to sort of blanket things, I've started going away from that. So could some of this alien stuff that people are classifying as aliens be demonic? In my own personal beliefs and opinion, yes. Does that mean all of them are? No, absolutely not. Also, I would say that somebody, whoever he was speaking about that is involved high up in the government, could also be a devout Christian, Catholic, whatever, and that's just their personal belief about these things and not necessarily the position of the United States government or exactly what they've found out so far about these entities and craft and whatnot, who have you, the phenomenon, as I believe it's called. So I think it's not something that can be summed up with just a yes or a no. It's a maybe in some cases, maybe not in others.
And I can tell you it's definitely not the position of the U.S. government. I think it's that person, and there are several persons. I think Debs can tell us that group, but that were grounded, that looked at it through a religious lens. And I can't wait, since Nathan went to seminary, I can't wait to hear his answer on this. So go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I mean, I could probably talk an hour about this kind of stuff. We, in the West, we live with the legacy of Christendom, right? Like it's just kind of in our DNA, even if we didn't go to church when we grew up, although many of us on the show probably did. It's in our literature. It's in our movies. It permeates so many facets of our culture and ways that we're both cognizant of and unconscious toward. And I think for those that, latch on to dark things or think about, dark forces, what sort of approximation do they have in their memory bank or a cultural memory bank that they can draw from to kind of associate those dark forces or unknown forces, for that matter, unexplained things. They're gonna associate them with demons. And we have a legacy, of course, too, of just this from the medieval times and onward, just kind of blowing up demons, from the Bible in a way that really they aren't even present in the Bible that much. It's not that they're not there, but we've kind of magnified their presence in that story. And why not, right? They make for great stories. They we like to tell ghost stories around the campfire. We like to be scared, and to feel a little bit of fear and overcome that fear. These are things that we enjoy, and so it makes sense that they be part of that. Now, all that said, I think this speaks to frameworks, right? So it's just frameworks where you fit this kind of experience. How does it fit into your worldview? And for some, it's angels and demons, because that may be the worldview that they really hold closely. For others, it's more of a scientific worldview, and that's why the extraterrestrial hypothesis has so much merit. That in the 20th century, we left the surface of the Earth and started sending satellites and humans out into space, and so then why wouldn't it be that other civilizations would do the same thing if they had more capability than we do? So thus we have ETs. And so really, it's almost like a Rorschach test in many ways, the UFO phenomena. When someone tells you what they think it is, it's telling you a lot about the worldview that they hold.
Them. Yeah.
A lot more about them than whatever it is. And then look, that's the best we can do, right? We're all going to kind of throw our own frameworks at this and try to make sense of it. But for me personally, I don't really put a lot of stock in the angels and demons, kind of dichotomy, or I think it's a lot more complex than that.
And I want to say that is it?
Yeah,
do I go or is it Deb's?
It's all you.
Okay, and so Dr. Pasolka actually says that obviously you guys know that she's a Catholic theologian, both a practicing Catholic and a Catholic academic. And she says that it's possible that the descriptions of angels could, back then could very much be what people described grays as. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to offer anything more than what Nathan did, because I do think that it's very much a lens issue. It says about how we see the world and the formative experiences that we grew up with, more so than necessarily what it is or isn't. I'm not sure who's even qualified to say that at this point. There are people, obviously, we believe, that have had contact with them, but we even ascribe human values and thought processes to them that they may not hold at all. But that's our limitation of us, right? That's the only way we can look at the world, is through our own lens as humans. So we ascribe some of those things. So we have to even try to be like, okay, I think that they may react like this, but they may not be thinking that way at all. That may not be how they view the universe, or what their interactions with us mean, and the purposes behind them. So unfortunately, but yeah, I really can't add to what Nathan said. I have to agree with that. Debs, ma'am.
Yeah, so there's a couple things that I was thinking when I heard that. One, the group that was considered to be this religious group trying to stop disclosure and everything is the Collins elite.
Thank you.
Right.
Yes.
And there's this mystery given to the government, we for some reason think they're superhuman or something, but they're just people, just like us. All of us could be working for the in the government at some point. There's so many different jobs. They're pretty much like a civilian job, just better paid. So I think that people just give more credence when you hear it's someone in the government with a belief, but they're just people like us. They're just gonna have their own opinions, their own views of the world. And what's more validating to say a Christian faith than to say this thing they don't understand has to be a demon, right? That's going to validate their belief in angels and gods and so on. So that's my 2 cents on that.
And Miss CJ, what is up, homegirl?
Yeah, you guys all put it really beautifully. I do think that it has to do with each individual and how they view it. I experience that every day just with my own friends and trying to walk around these conversations in terms of what are people open to hearing and not hearing, because I have had such an awakening in my life in the past few years, mostly from the individuals that we have interviewed on this show. So I can really only speak to those experiences that have been shared with me. We've had several people on our show that have been abductees in one way or another, including the very famous Travis Walton. But there have been others who have shared their stories with us too. And in most of those incidences, they have not felt threatened. They have not felt scared. They have felt like they were being helped. They have felt like they somehow benefited from the experience. So could that be demons just playing tricks? Sure. I mean, absolutely, of course. Or could it be a higher intelligence that we don't yet understand? Yes, I believe that's true too. There were a few stories that the person was terrified, that the person did feel like they were in some way violated. Certainly our electric voice phenomenon guy, he said that he did mention that some of them were demons. That they were aliens, but some of them were demons, that some of them were really bad individuals. So I'm on the fence. I don't know one way or the other. I can't say if they're good, bad, or otherwise, but I do believe that the universe also reacts to people differently based on each individual's ability to understand, accept, or believe what else is out there. In fact, when we interviewed the people from Skinwalker Ranch, Eric Bard, the lead investigator, said several times the ranch reacts to different people differently based on who they are. And we had the people from Beyond Skinwalker Ranch on our show, and they said the same thing, that they went to several different locations and the phenomenon that they were experiencing was latching on to different people, cast, crew, otherwise differently, that they had a few hitchhikers, in fact, with camera crew and things like that. So I just think it depends on who you are, what you believe is how you're going to see it.
Also, before we turn to Smitty, I just want to say in support of you, CJ, is that don't feel encumbered by your mom colleagues and playdate moms and stuff, because if you were to go back the length of time of like a car note, like 48 months, and said that we'd be having hearings on UFO, and there'd be senators from southern states and bipartisan efforts to talk about and bring forth information on UAPs or David Grush, people would have laughed you out of the room. And a lot of people now are not laughing about this. So, you're on the forefront. They're going to have to catch up, but you already know what's going on. So I just
to be fair, 48 months ago, I would have been one of those people laughing you out of the room. I mean, it was not in the forefront of my mind.
Validation, baby. We've been validated.
Yeah. And there are other, when I heard Bob Lazar's story and different aspects of his story, I believed him. And I also trusted George Knapp, did his diligence on it. But we'll get with that later. I gotta get my man Smitty in there. Go ahead, my friend.
Well, being a theologian also myself, and you're talking about, and Nathan may agree or disagree with me, but everything that's ever mentioned that I'm aware of in the Bible that has been an aerial phenomenon, flying chariot, whirlwind, scroll, any of those things had absolutely nothing to do with demonic forces. They were God-based, not demonic-based. So, my opinion, I believe aliens are aliens, and that they have really nothing to do with religion or spirituality. If they do truly exist, then they are a creature and a being like we are. That's what I believe. Because said there's no correlation that's ever been mentioned that I'm aware of in theology. I'll tell you what is interesting, though. I don't know if you know this, but in the journal of John Winthrop from the Massachusetts colony, they actually mention one of the first sightings of a UFO, and that was in the 1600s. That's pretty neat. But
and Columbus also. candles going in the water. You know, he
Yep.
talked about.
Yep. What do you
So-
think about that, Nathan? You think that,
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I mean, we what's the painter Dante's Inferno, right?
Right.
You know, that where he kind of caricaturized the angels and demons and the entire sort of underworld, embellished these characters from the Bible who have, you know, kind of bit parts, but, you know, adding the horns and the, you know, the forked tongue and the tail and the, you know, all these different, you know, images that are animalistic, reptilian in many cases. You know, dragons were also really popular and associated with demons. You know, this is, I think, kind of spun out of from the original context of these stories. And of course, just reminding folks who may not be as familiar, the Bible wasn't written at one time. It was written over many, many years and many different cultures and communities of faith and belief, and they applied their own way of understanding to what they were writing. And so to kind of look at all of that from a one-dimensional aspect and say, you know, there's a singular kind of common thread here, I think is a little bit of a jump. Not to say that people don't believe that. A lot of people do, but I think it's stretching it a little bit beyond the parameters of really what is actually there. And again, just coming back to the framework, right? It's when you look at this and you hear something that sounds like it's against humanity or more powerful than humanity, you know, there are really only two forces, right? There's God, which is in the Western Christendom, God is on the side of humanity, basically. More or less. And then there's anti-God, which is this host of demons with Satan and Lucifer. And so, you know, aliens sound a lot like the Satan Lucifer crowd, not the singular, you know, monotheistic God image that most people have when they think about those things.
And your fellow, I'm sorry, I was going to mention North Carolinian Chris Bledsoe has gone through this crisis with it, but I'm sorry, go ahead, Nathan.
No, I'm done. I think it was.
Oh, I was just going to say, I was going to throw a final thought from myself out on this topic. And there's a Bible verse from the Old Testament that's quite haunting when you relate it to the modern UAP phenomenon. This is Zechariah 5, verse 1 through 4. I looked again, and there before me was a flying scroll, which, by the way, sounds a lot like a tic-tac shape to me. Yeah. He asked me, "What do you see?" And I answered, "I see a flying scroll 30 feet long and 15 feet wide." That's translated from cubits. And he said to me, "This is the curse that is going out over the whole land. I will send it out. It will destroy it completely, both its timbers and its stones." And I just think about that. It's a little bit haunting to me.
Good stuff.
Thank you very much. And I just want to say, I get the cabbies on this, but really enjoying this conversation with you guys, man.
Oh, man. Awesome.
This is just awesome, man. This is just everything I hoped it was going to be, and I'm already thinking about part 2. So we haven't got through part 1 yet. So
hey, we're happy to be here. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Namaste.
I want to hit a topic that I wrestle with a lot, and I think you guys probably have as well. And it is related to UFOs. That's, you know, kind of more my wheelhouse. But we have a legacy of, I guess at least 70 years, 70 plus years of stories, you know, about this topic. And of course, there are stories that predate that. You mentioned one a minute ago. But with the U.S. government's involvement with the topic, we have a legacy of, I think many would argue, obfuscation, disinformation, you know, shadowy behavior. And we're entering into an age, and this morning, the press conference with Representative Burchett is a good example of this, where we have at least elements within the government who are trying to pry the secrets out of these dark places. But I think many in the community wrestle with, because we've been gaslit for so long, you know, what is the actual truth here? What is the kernel of truth in all of this story? And I think most people in the modern world would argue that they understand governments tell a story, right? Most adults understand that governments are telling them a story, and it's not the complete picture. And as parents, we do this, right? We tell our kids stories. We don't tell them every single detail that they need to know. We tell them what we think they need to know at the age that they are at and where they are at in their own development, what we think is going to help them grow. Of course, that doesn't always work, right? Sometimes they see through that story. Exactly. They call our BS. So, I know that's a long preamble, but I'm just really struggling here with when we have representatives from these agencies, we have folks who are trying to get the information out. How do you apply discernment with this legacy of disinformation from the same kind of government? And obviously, we all recognize that the government is not a monolithic institution. It's made up of individuals. But how do you approach this topic of disinformation?
So clearly I had the order wrong. So this goes to Matt. Am I correct? Matt is next? Okay.
You're next.
Okay, so I'm answering this first.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so me and Matt. Okay, so people have asked me this question, and normally what I'll say, Tim heard me go on, I've given him some of what I believe is my expertise in the knowledge of the order of operations of government and how they think and how they're likely to react in a given situation. And this is one I've stayed away from because it presupposes that I know everything they know and have been advised by, for example, cabinet level and maybe top government level sociologists and psychologists, and that are giving them information as to how they think the American public might react. They really don't care how they're going to react to it in Mongolia or in Navarre or France. Like, they really don't care. They really just care in this case about how the Americans are going to react to it, and with a little tinge towards Five Eyes countries. So I'm not sure what the appropriate amount is, but if you're just asking me personally, I would say something like the nature of what we've found, that they can characterize what we've discovered, what we to a degree have, where we think its derivation is, like what David said, a co-located physical dimension, or what a physical space dimension that is co-located with ours, something like that. I think they should speak to that. They would have to leave out maybe what they've derived from the craft, but at the same time, I also think that they should be speaking toward coming up with a plan to bring in truly the best and brightest that our country and our international partners, in terms of scientists and engineers, to look at this material and see if we can actualize something that, as Dave Grush said, is going to solve real world problems: energy, propulsion, zero emission sort of air travel propulsion and energy creation. I think just keeping it to smaller groups of people obviously hasn't worked. And it also may not work if we bring in the best and brightest, but you have to do that first. So that's my take on it. Matt.
Yeah, this one's kind of a tough one, as they usually are.
Sorry,
Whenever
Matt.
it comes to this sort of thing, we're dealing with the trickle of information that the government is giving us. Whatever they feel is worth our knowledge or okay for public consumption. And I believe at this point, all we can do in terms of discernment is just deal with that information and that information alone. To go beyond that, we're immediately jumping in the deep end of the speculation pool and trying to guess things. The drone thing comes to mind. So, I believe, and I could be completely wrong, but I believe the United States military was doing stuff with drones in the 1950s. Now, in the public sector, in the past 5 years or so, drones have kind of become a thing. And that tends to be the case with everything the government releases. in terms of information for public consumption, we're way behind where they're at. So if this is the information that they're giving us right now, where are they actually at? And the people that know where they're actually at, who can even access that information? I mean, Senate hearings and all that, great. I'm all on board with that. But I mean, a president lasts 4 to 8 years. They are briefed, maybe not, probably depending on who the president is, on this information. So somebody decides if the president gets to hear that information or not. I don't think the truth, the real information that they have, is accessible by anybody unless they say so. It doesn't matter what Senate hearings you put together, what committees are formed, what, court orders are made. It doesn't matter. It's beyond that. It's too top secret. So I don't think we should even try to discern anything at this point, and just wait and see, like we've been doing, and figure out where we go from there.
And Nathan, I just want to add on before we go to Debs that I would love to see a day when even our global power competition rivals, Russia and China, when we can cross flow and have their scientists looking at our tech and ours looking at theirs, and then maybe as a world we could figure this out together and see if we can spend a longer period of time on the planet than perhaps we're slated to now. But that's like a pipe dream, perfect world kind of thing. But it would be nice that if even beyond Five Eyes we would go. Debs, please Nathan. So basically, you want to know what she thinks we should know? Is that or what we should be told?
Discernment. Yeah, it's discernment.
It's about the discernment. So, okay, so what I do is I think about the gains. Like, would there be a gain to do a global psyop? No, that's ridiculous. Would there be a financial gain for pushing this? No, they don't need to do that. They have money. They don't need to do that. Would there be a gain for keeping this a secret? Absolutely, because they can keep the advanced technology for themselves. They can keep it out of the hands of foreign adversaries and so on and so forth. So I always think about gains. That's what helps me discern things. Like, what would they have to gain if they do this? And right now, it seems like Congress wants to gain control over this topic, and that's why they're doing what they're doing. So there's that gain issue right there. They also will probably get an uptick in votes if they are, appearing to be trustworthy and transparent for the population. But it's worth noting that even, what I have read with the proposed amendment doesn't make me feel like we're necessarily going to get the information ourselves. It's for Congress. So it's about their gain again. You know what I mean? So that's how I go through it. I just think about what is someone gaining. So that's how I do my discernment.
I like it.
They're definitely out on a limb, that's for sure, with what they're asking for. Even I spoke with Christopher Sharp, editor of Liberation Times today, and he's almost scared of what's going to come out, if he's ready for it, or he's questioning whether or not he's ready. But with that, let's go with Miss CJ.
Yeah. So, Representative Tim Burchett, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but
Burchett,
UFOs, y'all.
He said, more people believe in UFOs than believe in Congress right now. And I think that that's true. Nobody trusts what is being fed to us. Every time we have one of these UAP hearings, we get nada from them. I think that what we know is only the tip of the iceberg. Every time something comes out, it's big news for about a day, maybe 2 days. We talk about it on our show. I'm sure you talk about it on your shows, and then it disappears, right? We don't think about it anymore. They have a way of doing that. I get pulled in a couple of different directions because I have a lot of family and friends that work in aerospace for Boeing, Lockheed, Northrop, those sorts of entities that tell me all the time, CJ, you just have no idea what sort of technology we have out there. If you knew what was out there, you wouldn't sleep at night. So I have all of these people that are trying to tell me that what we're seeing, what's being seen, what's being interpreted as a UAP is actually our own technology. But I don't know that that's fully the case. I think that there's a lot happening that is not our own technology. I do believe that the government believes that as well, and that they're keeping that information from us. Many of the people that we've interviewed on our show had experiences in the 60s, 70s, 80s, what have you. And even in those times, they thought that the government was slowly leaking information to us. And yet here we are, still with the blindfold over our eyes, not really knowing what's going on. I'm not sure that we're going to find out. I've told a few of my friends that I feel like it's a slow leak from a tire, right? Like a slow leak from a tire, or something that you can kind of continue patching, and you just keep putting that patch on and keep on driving, versus like an explosion of a tire. And that's what the government is doing. They're slowly leaking information so that we'll be safe, so that we'll be prepared, versus just, full on fatal accident on the freeway. So I think they know so much more than they're telling us. And it's frustrating for me personally.
And just to add on to that, I mean, we're going on 19 years since the Tic Tac incident, and David Grush said himself when Ross Coulthard asked him, "Not our technology, not human tech." So there may be some, when somebody says that you wouldn't believe what we'd have out there, there are some spectacular aviation. I'm in aerospace myself, but I don't know what they're referring. What does that mean to me? I'd have to ask him. Because I haven't seen a whole lot that goes beyond Bernoulli's theorem and Newton's laws of motion in terms of how we propel craft. So if they're saying they've got something that's beyond that, then we're really in a good place.
Yeah, and I want to, just before I get over to Smitty, I wanted to jump in real quick on what CJ said, because it resonated with me a lot. So this is the reason why I don't think it actually is ET. Because I think if it were ET, it would have been a lot simpler to explain a lot longer, like a long time ago. I think the real truth of it is a lot more complicated, and it probably took a while for whoever was exposed to this to even understand what it was. And then as they gained understanding, we probably still don't understand all of what it is, to be honest with you. But if you think about like where the worldview was at the time that we were having official encounters with this technology or capability or whatever we want to call the phenomena, most people were operating in a really kind of basic understanding of the world and of the universe. I mean, even our understanding of science and math was pretty rudimentary. And so it would have been irresponsible of them to just sort of like dump it on the laps of everyone who had no frame of reference for dealing with this. And so if you think about where we are now, though, I'm not saying we're really in a great place to deal with it, but we're in a better place to deal with it, because reality is a lot weirder now. And none of us really, we already don't have a consensus on truth. Like, we understand that things are really confusing and gray, and with AI technology that is coming online, we understand that reality is very much like what you make it. And so I think about this a lot, this sort of convergence, right, of where we are as a society and where whatever this happens to be, maybe we're at a closer place where we have a little bit more of a parity and an ability to understand what it actually is. And that's the timing of where we are.
Quick question for you, Nathan. Do you think the general populace is more fearful of it being in a co-located physical dimensional space to ours than if it's extraterrestrial, flying here from some other planet and flying out or coming through a portal? Do you think there's a difference in terms of what people would fear more?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it would occupy your mental space a little bit more, I think. Right. Okay. It's if there's it's one thing to say, we all understand this, right? We all live in our houses, whatever, and we know that there are germs. We know that there are bugs. These are tiny little things that we co-locate with us every single day, and we don't think about them a whole lot. Sometimes we get sick and we know that's the germs. Sometimes we get, bit. We know that's a bug. We don't think about it a whole lot. It's a whole different story, though, when we're talking about another intelligence that could come into your bedroom or something and literally do something to you, again, against your will, that obviously transcends the minor annoyances of getting a cold or being bitten by a mosquito or something. So I think that would occupy a lot of mental space. I mean, as a parent, it would bother me, obviously, a lot. Sure. But think about flying, right? Like, if you're in an airplane and you're thinking just this is a standard airplane flight, but people already have a baseline level of anxiety about flying.
Right.
But you add on top of that, you're telling me these things are real. They could show up at any moment and like, you know, intersect with our plane. Or, I mean, I think it just could create a lot of panic that maybe we're not well equipped to deal with. So yeah, we're going to have to navigate those waters, right? If that's something that becomes more readily agreed upon, that they're here and that they can do that and be present with us anywhere.
And so I encourage people to call Nathan if there is some sort of grand disclosure or inescapable event that we've all seen on the news. But please, Smitty, give us.
I want to jump in real quick,
Yes,
just
ma'am, please.
super quick. And I think you're
Yes,
so
ma'am.
right, Nathan. We had Bob Salas on our show a few weeks ago, and you know, he was famous. Nuclear weapons were shut down while he was on duty, but midway through our conversation, he said, yeah, you know, it details my alien abduction. And I, you know, that was the first time I had heard that he had ever been abducted. So he told us that story. And then he told us that he thinks that they are actually abducting kids in the middle of the night and trying to like rebrand them essentially. I didn't sleep for weeks. I mean, I truly lost so much sleep over that. So I think there is something to what you're saying about like, even if we think that we're ready, we're okay, we've accepted AI, whatever. Yeah, maybe not. Maybe we're not ready to think that things like that could happen.
Totally.
Yep. Terry Lovelace is one you guys want to hear about. Seeing two Air Force guys going aboard a craft and them seeing children over there. It's very, very unsettling that there were children aboard that craft. But let me get Mr. Smitty in here, sir.
Okay. Anyhow, I'm kind of along the lines of a lot of you. I think we're being spoon-fed exactly what they want for us to know. For example, you know, Truman didn't even know about the atomic bomb until he became president. And I'm talking about this is, as you know, the highest level of our government, and they don't even tell him about a bomb that we have that could, in essence, change the whole war, and did change the war. Two, I have a friend who uncle was in the CIA. He says, I can't really tell you a whole lot about anything I did. He says, I can tell you this, some of the new technology we have now, we've had for years and years and years, but we would not release it to the public because you think if we release some things to the public, whatever it might be, let's just say an engine that ran, 100 miles a gallon, it would cause a collapse of a large part of our economy. So I don't know how much of this stuff we can, as a group of people in the United States, handle, how much panic would ensue if we knew the whole story of everything that was going on, whether it is military technology or whether it's extraterrestrial. It would still cause, I believe, a huge panic and possibly lead to mass chaos. But that's my thoughts on it.
People stocking up on bleach and hand gel and all the toilet paper they have at dollar store. So, all right.
And
All
aloe
right.
vera.
Yeah, and aloe vera. Thank you. Next topic. Let me see. I believe we have.
So did Tim get a chance to respond on that? Just want to make sure.
Tim, did
No,
you
I
not?
didn't. I had
Oh
a
my
little more-
God, Tim!
I
I'm sorry.
had a little more to say than aloe vera.
All right, I will rewrite my list of people because mine's out of sorts. Go ahead, sir.
But I did have a flashback of running to the grocery store in a mad panic to buy aloe vera so that I could create my own hand sanitizer in 2020. And I just was lucky enough to get a tip. Like a lady literally gave me a tip like, yo, I hear down at the Aldi, they got, like a couple of cases of aloe vera left. So I rushed down there and snagged I'm not going to say how many I got, but I still got some Primo homemade hand sanitizer if anybody needs some. But look, I got to comment on something Nathan said. I just had this thought experiment pop in my head when Nathan was bringing up the microscopic organisms that surround us. And I thought, that's a brilliant analogy, Nathan. I appreciate that. But my thought experiment was I couldn't help but wonder, is it possible? I'm definitely not talking about COVID here, by the way. Is it possible that NHIs could have been created in a laboratory and unleashed on us at some point in our present or perhaps in our ancient past? I'm just saying that's just a thought experiment. But anyway, y'all, I think we're going to hear a lot of this on Wednesday, July 26th at the UFO hearing.
So some of that, I think, sir, we'll save for closed session.
Exactly.
That's exactly right. I'm not compelled by that grouping, Tim, because we got one person who we've heard and we want to hear more from, and we have the other two we've heard ad nauseum on 75 different shows. But that's how this process goes, man. You're just going to be disappointed every time. I would like to have heard new people that we had not heard from yet.
Well, and you know, I'm the co-host of a paranormal podcast, but I have to admit, I have extreme skepticism and caution about all the things that are happening. You know, he has for example, just like you said with the closed session, he has the best Southern accent of the group, but also, as I've heard, the lowest security clearance. So to believe that they are going to reveal classified information to Tim Burchett or others who literally don't have the clearance to hear said classified information, you know, that's not going to happen. But I have extreme skepticism, extreme caution here. In 1947, something happened in Roswell, New Mexico. I believe we still don't know what really happened. Just shortly after Roswell, incidentally, we had the formation of the CIA and the Air Force. The same Air Force, by the way, which we barely hear anything from on the UFO UAP topic. And there's a book I love called Day After Roswell by Corso. You know, this ain't our first go round with high level whistleblowers. Okay. We've been told a lot of this stuff before. All right. Just read Day After Roswell. In 1963, the president of the United States was assassinated. Some people say it had something to do with UFOs. Even today, 60 years later, they've released more documents. There's still at least 5,000 documents, y'all, that they still won't release. That happened in 1963. And there was a very interesting name that popped up. I was telling Smitty about this. The guy, I can't remember his name, but y'all can look this story up. He apparently was the guy that intercepted the mail of Oswald, but it seems that in the 50s, him and a Georgia politician and a colonel from the army had a UFO encounter in Russia. Believe it or not, this is in the newly released JFK files. But to believe that we still can't get the information for the assassination of JFK in 1963, and that Wednesday next week we're going to find out that extraterrestrials exist, I think is a huge stretch, a huge leap of faith. Okay. I have extreme caution because we do not know the motivations of all the parties involved in this. And we can be assured there are many parties with many different motivations here. We know China has infiltrated the United States on many levels. And what I'm afraid of is that we're going to overlook some very important stories that really are happening around us. Okay. Could China want to invade Taiwan next week? Sure, they could. Could that be the beginning of World War III? Absolutely. Might China have incredible motivation to find out what sort of advanced technology we do have? You better believe it. And by the way, what better way for China and Russia to find out what sort of advanced technology, be it UFO or not, that we've got than for our own selves to find out and tell them? We need to be extremely cautious about that sort of thing, in my opinion. And the other thing that scares me, I am scared by the legislation by Chuck Schumer and others. And here's why. I applaud bipartisanship, but I still cannot help it, y'all. I'm like Smitty. I grew up on X-Files, trust no one. I think the truth is out there, but these are still politicians. And I don't want to be in such a rush for disclosure today that 20 years from now, I'm regretting the loss of freedoms that have happened because of that. We don't know when we start going down this slippery slope of laws. It's easy to give up a freedom and to say, okay, you, private company, you've got to reveal your secrets to us. But it's going to be very hard to get those freedoms back ever, once we give them up. So I'm really cautious about that. I think we need to be very careful. And, we should all be prepared with our emergency kits because you never know what's going to happen.
I had this discussion with Christopher today, and it's very difficult to navigate some of what's going on. Well, first of all, relative to politics and Schumer, everybody's in this for politics at one level or another. That's not unique to one party or the other, and hopefully there's some genuine interest by some of these guys and gals. That's what I hope. But either way, for us, we don't care how we get it as long as they give us some information, at least in a safe manner. Second of all, let's assume that there's a craft that's being held by a private company. Is it in the interest of the U.S. government to say to company X, and I'm not going to name a company because we don't know what company that would be, so I'm not going to attribute to a company, hey, yeah, go ahead and retrieve this craft that crashed in Iowa cornfield. Okay, so they go retrieve it. Okay, how is it in my interest as a government to do that? Now, if it's their intellectual property, you're right. We can't take it back from them. So it's more than likely that it was first of all, let's say there's local or state police that show up to a crash. And then all of a sudden, company X rolls in and says, hey, yeah, we're going to go ahead and take this and we're going to truck it off. And be like, no, you're not. You're not going to do anything. So the government is going to be involved in some way in every one of these that happened. And then there's a difference between ownership and custodial responsibility. So if they allow a contractor to haul this off to their facility, there more than likely is a contractual relationship, a memorandum of agreement, and there's probably a contracting officer representative on site regardless if it is at company X's facility in Provo, Utah, or name a city, okay? And that contracting officer representative is reporting back weekly on what is being done with that material and what they've actualized or not. Otherwise, there's no point in letting a contractor go and retrieve a craft unless you think you can get something from it. From their side, from the contractor side, do you want to pay a group of people to not only secure it, but have to pay these people to come in? No, you want to be under contract so that you're being paid to pay them. And usually it's a relationship whereby if they were paying Tim and myself $100,000 in salary to be engineer or scientist on this craft, they're being paid, the company from the government, probably $160,000 or $140,000. But there's always an advantage that the company is being paid over and above what we make. So that's more than likely what's happening. And it's in some cases, it may be their intellectual property, but it's not in the U.S. government's interest to do that. It's very helpful. There's so much that we don't know, Tim, that we have to kind of say, okay, if there's so much we don't know, that's 90% of this, 99%. What do we know? Okay, we do know Christopher Mellon and what his background is and what he has came out for. We do know Lou Elizondo giving up his career in government. We do know that David Grush not only gave up his career in government, gave up his Air Force Reserve Commission, and now is 36-year-old that is now not employed by the government, not going to get his retirement, et cetera, et cetera. So the motives of one individual, we know, hey, they're not in cahoots with him, hoping he's going to disclose something. They're trying to shut him up, which is why he made 2 IG complaints against them. Because the first one just got him in more hot water than he was when he said, I want access to these programs. I'm with Arrow, or I'm with the UAP task force. And they said, we don't care. You're not getting access. So he said, well, I'll file an IG complaint. Okay, then maybe we'll break in your house, or we'll just harass you. So then he filed a complaint with the ICIG. So it's not what we don't know, because that's most everything. You have to go with what we do know, someone who has skin in the game, who gave up something. So the opposite is true. The government is against him, not with him. That's why he's going before Congress, because they can't stop him. He's a private citizen. If he were in the Air Force Reserve, maybe they could, or maybe his boss at work would say to him, if he were still a DoD civilian or working for the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency or the NRO, hey, if you go and do that hearing, maybe you're not going to get promoted, but they can't do any of that because he said, bye-bye. That's a courageous person. Anyway, we have to move on to. So I wrote it down again, Nathan. So,
Yeah, I actually skipped Matt and I took his slot. So we're going to start. I think it's Matt's turn. to
Mr.
kick the
Matt, go
topic
ahead,
off.
sir.
Yeah.
Please.
Talking about politics and all this stuff, just for a second. I see this as, again, something that's not either this or that, but a lot of different things. And especially in today's climate with, China and Russia and everything going on, this is also a perfect opportunity for the United States government to kind of pull a power move. It's a lot like playing, Texas Hold'em. We don't know what cards they have, but they're showing the world, okay, well, we're all in. Here's our bet. Do you want to call our bluff or not? So these other government entities around the world, David Grush even spoke about, everybody has these retrieval programs. It's not just the United States, but we have to assume that Russia and China, for instance, and I'm just using them as examples because of our current standing with them. They also know about this stuff. They also have their own programs. Right now, with everybody not getting along, the United States is like, yeah, we know stuff. China and Russia have to be wondering, well, what do they know? What technology have they unlocked? What have they turned into a weapon of some kind that they could possibly use against us? So I think there's a lot of things going on besides just letting the general public of the United States know stuff. I think they're sending messages all over the world. I also think that money and power are very driving factors in politics. But I think because of this phenomenon being kind of scary, I think you got a lot of politicians that are feeling fear and letting that motivate them. And you got, like Deb was saying, these real humans, these real people that just happen to work for the government or just happen to be politicians are now like, hold on a second. These things are real. Well, what do you know? What haven't you told us? Why haven't you told us this? Do I need to be concerned with my children? Do I need to be concerned with my families? And I think that has a lot to do with why they're starting to try and push things now and trying to force the hand. How that will play out, your guess is as good as mine, anybody else's. With all that being said,
okay. I thought, I was like, I hope there's a question in there.
Well, unfortunately, the question is completely different. I'm going on a completely different path with this one because I know that you fine folks have looked quite a bit into Skinwalker Ranch. Obviously, now there's beyond Skinwalker Ranch, but all these different areas like that they're discovering and studying and researching and everything. We'll just use Skinwalker Ranch specifically for the point of the question. What is Skinwalker Ranch?
Nathan, that's to you.
Oh boy. All right. Well, here's what I think, and this gets back to something we've talked about already. What if we took the tools, the technology, the experiments that they've been doing at Skinwalker Ranch and beyond Skinwalker Ranch, these other places? What if we just apply those same techniques anywhere? Right? I mean, we have this assumption that these are the places where weird things happen, like because they've been known to happen, or people have their stories about these places or whatever. So we fixate on those locations as if that's where resident ghost happens to live, whatever it is. That's their address, right? What if it's not the case? What if that's not really how it is? What if that kind of phenomena, that behavior, that strangeness is actually everywhere? And it's just we have to look for it. And if we start looking for it, we will find it everywhere. And I think that's where I sort of lean, is that the reality is really weird and a lot weirder than we think, that our models of it are pretty bad, that people have real experiences where their reality is shaken and changed because of the way it actually is. And it just so happens that is everywhere. It's ever present all around us, and it's a matter of like turning our awareness to it. And when we turn our awareness to it, then it becomes visible to us in a way. We become aware of it. It's like that story. You guys may have heard this, where like they didn't have the color. Was it blue or something like a long time ago, or it was like they if you look at ancient literature, like they describe the ocean as being like the color of wine or something like that. Like there's this weird story where this notion of blue kind of emerged in history, and it hadn't really been there before. Of course, blue had been there before, but we hadn't had a way to be aware of it, perhaps. So similarly, that might be what's going on here. And that doesn't directly answer your question, but that's how I think about this issue.
And for me, I'm going to, myself included, we got to tighten up our answers now because we're about 20 minutes away from 2 hours. So for me, kind of like to think of the Bermuda Triangle, Matt, that, there's a certain place where there's some sort of magnetic forces or these sort of these ley lines, Deb's talked about on her show. I believe there's something there on that property that perhaps physically they've found it within the mesa. It seems that they believe that they have drilled in there and found something and are now able to approximate a shape, and also they see reactions. So from a scientific perspective, it does appear that there is something anomalous about that particular space that, as Nathan said, maybe in a lot of other places, because now they have beyond Skinwalker Ranch, and they're going to these other places and they're finding anomalous activity. But I think it is a place that definitely maybe there. I've heard Native Americans say that. I think Jonathan Dover told us he believed that there may have been some sort of a deal between Native Americans and some sort of let's call it a non-human intelligence to be able to use that area underneath the ranch. But it doesn't seem like the most impossible thing that we've heard in the last 2 months. So I think it is a place where there is some activity going on. I believe there's probably even Bigfoot activity there, but for some reason they've chosen not to discuss that on the show. So now we're going to Debs.
Yeah, so I think I agree more with Nathan that any place can be as special as Skinwalker. Really, if you just look up, you're going to see a UFO eventually. I think there's that many of them, that there are that many anomalous things happening. It's just a matter of paying attention. But I also think that that's a very special area because there's been a lot of radioactivity in that area. And I can't rule out that some of that influences what's going on and might be attracting UFOs to the area, because they seem very interested in radioactive areas. And I think that they should be carrying Geiger counters more often while they're there.
That's Deb's new thing. It's all about the Geiger counter, baby. Julie asked a question in chat, our chat moderator. Jules, they can classify a program. There's an original classification authority. People are named that. The president can declassify anything he wants. The last two presidents we've had with a high clearance are like in the last 50 years, are like George H.W. Bush and Jimmy Carter are the only two that actually had like a TSSCI polygraph background check, but yes, any of them can declassify a program, but yes, anybody can justify it to their boss and say, yeah, we need to classify this. And obviously a lot of this information is just overclassified, DOD wide. So,
and let me jump in on that real quick, DJ, if that's okay. Sometimes programs can be classified, and not until decades or longer later do we realize they actually were immoral and illegal. And a great example of that is the Tuskegee Airmen experiments, experiments where we've injected our own citizens with syphilis just to see what happens. And so sometimes these programs are not viewed as illegal and immoral until much after the fact.
No doubt, man. Historiography and actually not even historiography. I mean, they're just unconscionable things that have happened, and makes me sick, frankly. Let's see. We're going to that was Deb. So
me.
CJ goes next,
Yeah.
ma'am.
I feel like I could talk about Skinwalker Ranch forever, but I'm going to keep it brief with our time. Of course, there's a show, right? There's a History Channel show. So you've got the drama, you've got the spectacle, you've got all of that going on. However, having had a few of the individuals on our show after we stopped our recording and they started talking, and I wish we could have recorded it, they're just real people. They're real people, and this is their job. And they 100% fully believe that something is happening on this ranch that is special. And for that reason, I too believe that there's something happening on that ranch that is special. I do not think it's the only place where these things are happening. I think that their future show is proof of that. And to Nathan's point, I do not want any of their technology coming to my home to look for things because I don't want to know. I'm happy. I'm happy to just go about my day and make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and, think these things are happening to other people.
Tim, could you see if there's 1.6 gigahertz next time you're over at CJ's place, please?
No.
It reminded me of the black light in the college dorm. Like, just not a good idea.
All right, so we're going next to Smitty, please.
I'm kind of same along the lines of CJ. I believe it is a special place, and that but this technology, I wish they could take it to other places like Devil's Den and other areas and see what's going on. There's so many places that exist, I believe, that are similar to Skinwalker's Ranch. They just are focusing on this so much that it is pulling back the veil, per se, in this particular area where, there's so many things that exist out there that are unknown. That would be nice if we could take that technology and just go out. Now, that's kind of what they did in the next show that we talked about. But as long as we don't take it to CJ's house, I guess it'll be okay.
Yes, we do not want to measure. Yeah. So please leave your measuring.
If you're listening, do not visit me.
Just keep it away. Keep it away.
So Nathan, one other thing I forgot to mention, another thing that makes Skinwalker Ranch very interesting is Robert Bigelow's involvement in it before Brandon Fugel took over.
Don't you steal my thunder.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah. When
you go say what you need.
When I listen to Chris Bartell talk about that, he was out there. First of all, he was out there with just he and another guy when he first went out there, and then to reduce costs, they got rid of the other guy, and he was out there alone. And I'm like, that violates any possible protocol that you could imagine to have someone securing that property on their own. Like, anything could happen to him, and he would just be dead by the time anybody got there. I kind of lost respect for Bigelow at that point. Okay, so next person is me, I guess, right? My topic? Or did anybody?
Tim's
Tim didn't go. Go ahead, sir.
So I'm going to go the DJ route on this, and I'm going to talk about, real quick, what is known about Skinwalker Ranch, just briefly. And sometimes I think the known, obvious things are the things we overlook the most. We know, thank you, CJ, it was purchased by Robert Bigelow, an aerospace billionaire, right? We know it is an incredibly remote location that, especially decades ago, would have been perfect for testing all of our top secret aircraft and other technologies. And you know what? I think that kind of gets overlooked a lot, right? Like, we don't actually talk about those parts of it a whole lot. But that's what we know. Now, what about things that it could be? It could be the site of a UFO recovery or some sort of unknown metallurgical remnants of an ancient UFO recovery. We've got a lot of talk now about giant UFOs that they have to put buildings over. About a lot of talk about, Bob Lazar mentioned, deriving technology from ancient UFOs. Okay. So it could be the site of something like that. It could also be the site of, some sort of thinning in the dimensions, if you believe what Robert Grush had to say, or what he alluded to, that he's going to call them NHIs because we have no evidence from they're from another part of space, which interestingly, we talked to Avi Loeb about the David Grush comments, and he essentially said David Grush was full of crap. That David Grush we have no evidence whatsoever of other dimensions, which I thought that was very interesting that Avi Loeb had that take. But anyway, perhaps Skinwalker Ranch is the site of the thinning of the veil of dimensions, and perhaps the site of ancient beliefs, ancient things that have happened there, supernatural things with the native folks there. We've had folks on our show from a great folks from a place called Board Camp Crystal Mine in Arkansas, and they have a lot of this similar activity there. Matter of fact, Expedition Unknown with Josh Gates was at their property. They have UFO encounters, and by the way, which left incredible physical evidence of magnetism and physical damage. They have Bigfoot encounters. They have basically teleportation of crystals and other objects there. But what's most exciting about Skinwalker Ranch is, of course, if it's more than one of these things. So if in addition to just being a remote place that's great for testing super top secret things, it's more than that, but also one or more of these other items I mentioned. I'm with CJ. It's currently owned by Brandon Fugel. We know that. And CJ and I and Smitty believe that we also know they're doing legit scientific work there.
Yeah, I mean, right, Tim, when they have that drill bit going in the side of the mountain with 4,000 pounds of pressure, and all of a sudden it just can't go any further, but yet the drill bit is not scuffed as what they would expect to see if it had encountered something that would be really abrasive. I mean, that's anomalous. I mean, that's something that's inexplicable. So I take them at face value. Go ahead, sir. All right, so we went Tim, Matt. So it's me now, my topic. So real quickly, guys, I have sort of an A and a B. It's just, is there a revelation that could come out here about something that's being done, let's say, untoward, under our noses, that would drive you away from this topic? A, and B, this is just kind of a yes or no, but in terms of, we've discussed this on the last episode, Bigfoot, are you down for having someone shoot one and bring it in, or just let them continue to, be mysterious forest creatures and on their own? So that one would go to Debs. I know your answer to the second one, but how about the first one, Debs?
There's nothing that's going to turn me away from the topic, because no matter what it is, if it's, our tech, multi-dimensional, NHI, whatever it is, it's fascinating, and I want to know. And I actually think everything's on the table, by the way. I think it's all of it. So I want to know, and I think we have the right to know. And of course, to the second part, as you said, you already know, no, leave the Bigfoot alone. Do not shoot that thing. Leave alone.
Yeah, and the reason it came up, that Marine Corps guy, and I'll send this off to Tim so that he can share it with CJ and Smitty. But it's basically a Marine Corps guy interviewing with the Navy SEAL, and he's basically talking about a UFO craft they encountered in Indonesia. And when he went to speak at the Stephen Greer press conference, someone approached him and said, I know that what was inside those Connex boxes that were being loaded on that craft, and it's human trafficking. There's nothing to necessarily back that up, but I'm saying there could be an aspect of this that is really off-putting. So I'm thinking of outside the box of something like that that's even more extreme than the things that David Grush said. So with that, we're going to Miss CJ.
So I'm very tenderhearted. I will admit there has been times that we have done this podcast that afterwards I've thought to myself, I can't do this anymore. This is too intense. I'm losing too much sleep. I am starting to see and hear things that aren't real, or, I truly, there probably is something out there that if I learned about it, I might think, okay, I think I've hit the wall and I need to stop doing any more research so that I can just live normally and sleep at night. I don't know what that is yet, because here I am. Continue to move forward. As for Bigfoot, no, I don't want anybody to shoot a Bigfoot. I don't need a Bigfoot to die for me to have proof of anything. So, no.
All right. And the next would be Mr. Smitty. Is there something? Go ahead,
Oh,
sir.
go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm going to answer your question. I'm gonna put it real country. I'm just gonna hang in there like a tick on a hound dog, and whatever comes out, that's going to draw me closer, I think, to the investigative side of it. Just peeling back the layers is something that I enjoy. I just love doing research and digging deeper into things, and to see some other connection would make us go in that direction possibly, and research that. As far as Bigfoot goes, if I see one, I'm going to leave it alone. I think everyone else should also. So.
That's a great answers. Yeah, and it's just the more there are things. Tim and I talked about, and everybody knows I'm not a conspiracy guy, but there are some things, some revelations here that you can't really ignore that lead to some darker aspects of these topics that are kind of like what CJ said, are beyond my comfort level, and so who knows where it could go if that box is opened. But did we get to everybody? Matt needs to go. Matt,
Tim next.
Oh, Tim. Sorry, Tim.
Oh, no worries. So I think the one thing that could turn me off of the UFO phenomenon, UAP phenomenon, is if we really start, and by the way, there seems to have, we admit, to be some sort of connection between UFOs, the UAP phenomenon, and nuclear, right? There's some sort of connection there. One surprising thing when we talked to Mr. Billy, the eyewitness of the Florida, Mississippi UFO, one of the over a dozen law enforcement officers, we had him on the show, and this came out of nowhere, totally shocked us, is that, and this has not been revealed anywhere. A lot had been known about this case, but this was not anywhere, is that, the day after this incident, he got a phone call, and the sheriff answered, and the sheriff said, here, you talk to Mr. Billy about it, and it was none other on the phone than Dr. J. Allen Hynek.
Wow.
Who had some revelations that he revealed to Mr. Billy on the phone. And one of the things he said, he said, we believe they seem to be able to use gravitational waves and travel along certain lines of the earth, and that they, he also wanted to know, was there a nuclear facility anywhere close to them, that they seem to have some sort of affinity for nuclear. And a lot of our shows, we couldn't help but get tangled up in some previous notions called MAD and SAD, simultaneous atomic destruction, mutually assured destruction. And that indeed, unfortunately, is a part of this conversation when you talk about all the parties involved, and we admit that there's some sort of nuclear connection or correlation going on here. And that would turn me off real quick. I'm going to invoke the biblical here, or the Southern with Smitty, it's going to be the, my kids and the pets and me, and we're heading to the hills. If I see apocalypse, Armageddon is about to throw down, right? Then that's going to turn me off real quick. All of a sudden, I'm going to be focused on something else besides UFO Twitter and Bigfoot hunting. So I'd like to do it. I've had this thought experiment about Bigfoots, and I love Bigfoot, of course. I've written some Bigfoot children's books. If you go to squatching.com, you'll see them. But my Bigfoot thought experiment is this. What if all the UFO, UAP headlines we've had the last few years were actually about Bigfoot? So can you imagine? Navy admits Bigfoot footage is real. Okay, what would that do to the world, y'all? What would that do to the world? And I'll just leave you with that thought experiment. What if the UFO, UAP headlines were Bigfoot headlines? And I'll let you have it at that.
Let Matt riff on that one.
Go ahead, Matt. Oh no, actually, we'll get to Matt, but and we'll both have a shot at that at the end. But let's get. Oh, is it Matt's turn now?
Mm-hmm.
It is, and then you. Sorry. Go ahead, my friend.
What am I answering? Which one?
So basically, since Tim put out an interesting thought experiment, we've talked about it. What if all his question's even better than mine? What if all the UAP headlines were Bigfoot headlines that we've seen since 2017 New York Times article?
Yeah, what would happen? I would probably get paid a lot more to do my podcast.
Whoever.
I don't. So here's the difference. I don't think it would ever happen. But if we're just speculating that it did, I think instead of having all these people on board and hanging on the government's every word, you know, what comes next, what information, it would be more along the lines of like, yeah, they're lying to us again. Bigfoot's not real. I don't think enough people would be on board with it. I don't think people would believe it. I think people would just say it's a distraction from the real news and the real stuff going on. If it was a situation where it was proven without a doubt, it wasn't just, you know, the slow leak, but like, here's one in captivity for everyone to look at. I think people would start freaking out. I think people would want to move into the cities instead of out of them. I think camping would take on a whole new realm. I think it would be an entirely different atmosphere in your national parks. The financial repercussions for so many industries, you know, that might be a reason right there just for them not to ever do that. The government is tied to too many corporations that rely on natural resources. And if you've got something out there that might possibly be a type of human or even an animal, either way, once you admit that it's there, well, now we got to shut everything down. Now we got to do population studies. Now we got to go out and see what their environment is, what their habitat is. If there's not enough of them, which there's obviously not, they need to be protected. So how much space does a Bigfoot get? You know, quite a bit more than a spotted owl. And we've seen how much problem that caused. So yeah, I think a total catastrophic event would be a very big possibility in that situation.
And how do you control where they go with their migration pattern? Hey, you guys have to stay right here in Salt Fork State Park. Like, don't go beyond that boundary right there. So the LBL, that's, you can't.
Yeah. How do they control where the elephants go in Africa? You know,
right.
They don't.
Right. So, anyway, Nathan, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I'll just be quick about it. I mean, like, there's a veneer in our reality has a thin veneer to it, right? And I'm kind of coming back to something CJ said, and I resonate with as a parent too. You know, like, it's just we all know that there's sort of deeper layers to the world, right? That there are deeper levels of what's happening. We all know that our governments, I mean, name one, has probably done something really unsettling and unsavory in the name of keeping their citizenry safe. Or at least that was a justification that they used, and sometimes they do things, you know, for terrible reasons, not even for good ones. So I think we recognize that that's true, and as a result, you know, maybe we're better left just kind of living a little bit in ignorance to some degree. You know, like it's better to like not know all of the dark things that maybe that happen, because what is our culpability, right? What is our connection and our responsibility to that when we know the truth there, and then like things start unraveling, like the narrative that we've all like constructed and shared together, like it starts unraveling pretty quickly. And I don't think we live in a world now where we can actually like do any of that very safely. Like everything is too interconnected. I mean, just look what happened when the supply chain stuff like had a disaster. I mean, it was just cascading effects that ripple throughout all of our society. So, I mean, you know, a lot of folks that just say, well, I want all the truth and I want it now. I just think I totally get it. I mean, I want the truth too. We like knowing what the truth is, but I think we also like these governments have a responsibility for billions of people. I mean, you know, if the truth could create, you know, millions of catastrophes, like, is it worth it? I mean, probably not. I don't think so. I've
had people flat out tell me they don't want to know, like regarding this topic, specifically like the UAP stuff, not related to ghosts and Bigfoot, because that isn't being taken seriously as well as this. But I've had people tell me I don't want to know. So I'm like, oh, okay.
I tell you what, DJ.
Yes, sir.
Let me borrow some of those shades, and tomorrow I put them on, and I see some alien skulls underneath some skin, and then my television says, "Obey, go shopping." get
I'm
8
gonna
hours
tell-
of sleep. I'm probably out then too, so I forgot about that part.
Are you
I'm gonna
Roddy Piper? Isn't that on the
I came here to chew some bubble gum and whoop some butt, y'all, and I'm all out of bubble gum.
I'm gonna tell you what, when we do the joint cab and all things unexplained Bigfoot outing, I will bring you a brand new pair of these glasses. Okay.
And some Zag nuts. I'll bring the Zag nuts.
Okay, brother. Okay, so let's see. Now we have Deb's topic, ma'am.
Yeah, I'm gonna make it as quick as I can
Yes,
for
ma'am.
everyone to answer this. But we've talked a little bit about the topic I wanted to talk about was, the right of the government to essentially decide for us whether or not something scary is happening. And I personally don't think that it is their right to decide that. I don't think that they should be the ones that make those decisions, just like I wouldn't expect the government to keep us all out of the water because of sharks, or keep us all out of certain areas because of earthquakes, or, I don't think that actually is their right. So I just wanted to throw that out there. If you think there is someone that you would accept that decision making from, essentially, who do you think could make that decision for us?
Miss CJ.
Oh, there's one person I would trust, and I don't think they'd ever give him the authority. But no, not you, Tim. Stop yourself right now. You just go ahead and stop yourself.
Tim.
We have had on our show astrophysicist Dr. Charles Liu. He works for the Hayden Planetarium. He's brilliant. He's written lots of books. He's so philosophical. He thinks deeply about everything. And if he made decisions in my life every day, I would accept them fully. If he told me I was ready to know more, I'd be ready to know more. So he's a good friend of the show. I'm going to say Dr. Charles Liu.
And that's my hometown planetarium, Hayden Planetarium. That's New York.
I'm dying to go.
So,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. We went there in elementary school. Go ahead, Mr. Smitty, please.
I don't know who I'd be willing to accept answers from, because I really don't trust the government to tell us more than what they think we can handle. So there's a lot of doubt in my mind as to what we talked about earlier. They're telling us, and how that's connected to other things. I don't know really of any one person I could say, yes, definitely this is person that tells me this. I trust them fully. I'd have to see things more with my eyes than I would anyone else. I guess the only person I would trust to do that would be me. So I hope that doesn't come off as arrogant, but I just kind of a see it, believe it kind of thing.
More of a reason for our Bigfoot outing, Smitty.
That's exactly right. I'm ready.
All right, brother. All right, Mr. Tim, sir. Dr. Mounce.
Wow. I mean, that's such a tough question, but I'll just say this. So I recently read The Stand by Stephen King. Didn't recently come out, but it very well could have, because to read The Stand post 2020, okay, it's almost like everything that happened was at the beginning of The Stand, y'all. And except it kept going, right? So next thing you know, there was no government. There were no institutions, right? And it takes me back to a quote that I've heard a few times recently. Hard times make hard men. Hard men make good times. Good times make soft men. Soft men make hard times. And I think that in those situations, you got to be able to take care of yourself. And one more quote about that. It's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. You got to be able to handle your own business and be able to take care of you and your own. And that's what I'm going to do.
Also, a great movie with Charles Bronson called Hard Times.
You have a gift for not directly answering the questions, Tim. Like, such
I appreciate
a gift.
that.
All right, Matt.
I'd like to add on to that. Let the good times roll.
He's quoting the Cars and Rick Ocasek. I love it.
I'm going to go in a complete different direction with my answer, just to piss everybody off.
Oh, you'd never. I can't.
I
imagine.
think the government does have the right to do it. Why? Because it's our job to elect people to give them that right, because we trust that they'll do the right thing. Why? Because we're all idiots. We're all dumb. We're all stupid. And the whole like aloe vera and toilet paper fiascos just proves that. Every time there's a cold front coming in Oklahoma, you can bet within 24 hours, all the bottled water, milk, and hamburger meat are gone out of the grocery stores. I don't know if it's like that everywhere else, but that's how it is here. So yeah, I don't think they should tell us anything. If I was in control of the government, y'all wouldn't even know what UFOs were. I would just play stupid the entire time. I wouldn't tell anybody anything because people can't handle the information. Plain and simple. We're not talking about people like us who are following the subject and researching it, investigating it, and trying to keep level heads and understand everything. We're talking about the people you run into at Walmart at 3 o'clock in the morning, knowing all the information. What are they going to do? How are they going to react? That's what they got to think about. The majority of the population aren't level-headed individuals. Plain and simple. That's the scary fact of it. So I trust the government. Oh, that's funny. I can't even say it without laughing.
Yeah, I know, because I feel like your conspiracy theory. I mean, I feel like you and Dr. Mouse have a budding friendship. That's
for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
I can tell you one thing: the 3 a.m. Walmart crowd is going to Huddle House after they leave Walmart. That's what they're doing.
In Mississippi, if it has a snowflake fall, we go and get milk and bread. Some reason people like milk and bread sandwiches. I don't know what the deal is.
Milk sandwiches. But now listen, seriously, you walk into a Huddle House or Waffle House, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., that place is packed. It's going to be slammed. I don't know why.
all right.
Just as a little side note, my whole podcasting journey and Bigfooting journey started with two individuals, one from Grenada, Mississippi,
Wow.
and the other from Gulf Shores, Alabama, I believe. And their names are Bear and Kumbo. So I get you
Bigfoot outlaws,
guys.
baby.
Yeah, I get you guys entirely.
I spent a lot of time at Grenada Lake.
I actually have an uncle we call Bear. So
Uh-oh.
Look out.
I love it, God, Nathan.
And
I mean,
you
guys,
know,
look,
one of my best volleyball friends was Taterbug.
Tater bug.
Bug and Buck Rogers and the Possum Head Man.
I can't wait till part 2 of this podcast till we do,
Amazing.
because there's just so much more to get to. I mean, I feel like Tim could just go on like a really good 30-minute rant right here. So go ahead, Nathan.
I was going to say Keanu Reeves. I just think that guy's a good dude. I'd listen to him. Tell us like it's straight. Give us the straight story. But Matt, I mean, I'm kind of with Matt on this, right? I think, unfortunately, just the way the world is, like we have to have structures that we have, and it'd be irresponsible of them to just like, dump some knowledge on us that would result in really bad behavior and a cascading series of events that they can't control. And I hate that, right? I hate that's the case, but I think it's true. I think if we were in their shoes, we probably would do the same, because we would understand the weight of that responsibility.
Yeah, first of all, if I had to pick somebody, I guess it would be Nathan to make the decision. No, all kidding aside, I mean, I don't know who that person would be, because that I just don't know. But what I do know is basically, and again, it's going to take off of what Nathan said, is that it's very difficult when you're being charged with these responsibilities. And I'll just use, like, for example, there was a lot of hot and heavy UAP talk around when Charles Q. Brown took over the Air Force, which was, I mean, right around 2019. I think it was right after the George Floyd incident. He took over, and he was charged with, after the pullout of Afghanistan, of remaking the Air Force from flying in these permissive environments like Iraq and Afghanistan to being able to fight Russia and China that are completely opposite and have robust integrated air defense plus bombers, fighters, and everything else that these other countries didn't. So while people would criticize CQ Brown for his probably his stance on UAPs, they had to look at, hey, I've got to remake the Air Force. Like, we are not prepared to fight. This is not Iraq. This is not Afghanistan. It's not permissive. So same thing goes for, and you can just keep going up levels from county level, town level, county level, state level, federal government. Now you have somebody that's charged with trying to figure out what the American public can digest and what might happen as a result of that. And it's not a job that I would want. I certainly don't think I'm qualified to know what that is. And I think sometimes they get it wrong, very wrong. Sometimes they get it right. And as far as this topic, we're going to find out just how wrong or right they got it after Congress digs their teeth into this, because they're basically saying, look, we were elected, you weren't, and therefore we represent the American people, and you're going to tell us. And eventually, I think, unlike that drill at Skinwalker Ranch, I think they'll be able to penetrate some of it. So, all right. Who goes after me?
CJ, bring it home.
It's me. Deb, that was a great question.
Yes.
Thanks for asking that. Did you have thoughts on it, by the way, Deb, before we move on?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that just as a thought experiment, just to throw it out there, what if we continue down this path of the government has the right to keep it a secret, and then like 50 UFOs land in our sky? Just something to think about. Like, what was that the good decision then? Like, so I'm just throwing that out there to think about. Or like 50 Bigfoot come and hang out around the White House. Just something to think about. Okay. Okay, go ahead, CJ.
Okay.
It's very complex.
So my topic, and I'll keep it super short, is an event that happened in Las Vegas a couple of months ago. And I'm sure that you guys all know about it and probably even talked about it on your show, but we haven't had a chance to talk about it on our show yet. And this is one thing that actually had friends of mine that don't normally reach out to me about my podcast reaching out saying, what do you think about this? Are you guys going to dig in deeper? And Tim, I know you put together a clip. Is that something that we want to play real quick? And then I'll ask my question.
It's a scene straight out of the X-Files. A family in Las Vegas insisting something is out there after allegedly having a close encounter of the third kind.
I swear to God, this is not a joke.
One witness calling 911 after they say an object fell out of the sky and landed in their backyard.
They're like 9 foot, 10 foot tall. They look like aliens to us. Big eyes, they have big eyes.
The mysterious object that fell from the sky, even the officers apparently saw that. The green glow of the alleged UFO is seen on this newly released body camera footage.
I have butterflies, bro. Everyone saw a shooting star, then these people say there's aliens in their backyard.
So when that 911 call came in, less than an hour later, police were ready to believe it.
It was like a big creature.
A big creature?
Yeah, like around 10 feet tall.
Because I'm not going to BS you guys. One of my partners said they saw something fall out of the sky too, so that's why I'm kind of curious. Did you see anything land in your backyard? Or?
But after a brief investigation of the yard, officers closed the case as unfounded.
If those 9 foot beings come back, don't call us, all right? Deal with it yourself. I ain't dealing with that.
According to former intelligence officer David Grush, an alien crash landing isn't too far-fetched. Grush recently turned over documents to Congress claiming the U.S. government has a vast collection of vehicles that have non-human origin. Andrew Dimbert, ABC News, New York.
Okay, so my question's simple. Real or fake? What's your thought?
Smitty.
Smitty,
Brother Smitty, you're on mute.
Wasn't this the case also where it showed the outline of the craft in the back?
Yes.
I don't know. It's pretty convincing, especially you see the footage from his body camera. I've never seen a fallen star look like that. I'll put it that way. I can say this, if that would have happened in Mississippi, there would have been gunfire involved if there had been a 9 foot creature in someone's backyard, more than likely. But I don't know. It's a hard thing to really say. But it's kind of like I was reading something earlier about UFOs. Kind of like, who you call when this happens? If you call the police, they're not equipped to handle it. You call some other government entity, they're not really going to handle it. I mean, if you do see something like this, you're pretty much on your own, because if people do come out, most of the time, 9 times out of 10, they're probably going to think that you have lost your mind. So there is some evidence, I think, to back that this is real, especially the outline, the body footage camera or body camera footage, and those types of things. It's a strange happening. We'll put it that way.
2 things for you, Smitty. We saw gunfire when I was going through flight school at Little Rock. We used to get shot at all the time doing low level. And be like,
Yeah.
what are these dudes doing out in the country? They're shooting at C-130s from Little Rock. But yeah, it happened fairly regularly that we got shot at. Second of all, regarding that, it's interesting that you point that out, because coming up on the show soon is Professor Keith Taylor. Dr. Keith Taylor was a retired NYPD SWAT and other aspects. He was all over NYPD for his entire career. He's a professor at John Jay College, and he wants to set up basically a training program that can go state, county, local, and it will train officers what to do to deal with a UAP call, a Bigfoot call, or a paranormal call, because he feels like that agencies are not equipping their law enforcement officers, as you just mentioned. They don't know what to do, and they deserve to have that training. So we're going to have 2 cops on with us as co-hosts, in addition to Dr. Taylor. So that's coming up here pretty soon.
Pretty amazing. Like you said, though, I mean, who do you call? Because
they're not trained. It's not fair to them.
I mean, that would be like, calling the police to come in my history class and teach, early American history. They're not trained for that. I'm not trained to go.
I think they could do that.
Oh, shut up, Tim.
Dr. Mounce.
We'll have this out later. But, I tell the kids all the time in class, not everybody's equipped for everything. I've got 3 college degrees, but I can't take somebody's gallbladder out. I'm not trained that way. And so when you do see these things and nobody takes you seriously, it's disheartening. And I think so many people, instead of talking about it, they just shut down because nobody's taking them seriously. And I think that's led to a lot of incidents being, just brought in instead of actually told to outward to the public.
Hey, so there's Dr. Taylor. It happens to be in the chat right now. So, Dr. Taylor, we were just talking about you. Smitty brought up this topic, and that we're going to have you on and try to figure out what kind of a program you would come up with to get police officers trained so they know how to deal with UAPs, Bigfoot, or paranormal. So, thank you, Dr. Taylor. Actually, we're going to talk scheduling with you, because I think we're going to bring a UK counterterrorism police officer on with you. And so we may need to do daytime. Keith, your ears must be burning. Thank you, Money Nathan. So, Dr. Mounce, can you go ahead, sir?
Yeah, when you said Dr. Taylor's here, I thought Travis is here, but I expected him to say, "Get the rockets, y'all. We'll get some UFOs up there, y'all." But
we got PhDs galore around here, man. We got you.
Crazy.
We got Dr.
It's like,
Taylor.
wow, Travis Taylor, Dr. Travis jumped in here. But interestingly, if you live on Navajo land, you do have somebody to call. The Navajo
That's
Rangers.
right. The paranormal called Jonathan Dover and Stan Millbrook. Come on, man.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
So in addition to the Ghostbusters, if you're on Navajo land, you got somebody you can call. And funny you should say that, Smitty, about if they were in Alabama and Mississippi. That, and I agree they'd be in big trouble. But if you actually watch this full video, these dudes are packing heat in the video. Like, these dudes came to this UFO crash heavy. Like, they were equipped, son, to deal with some trouble. Now, why they chose not to deal with it, I don't know. But you watch that full video, and you see these guys are strapped. They're ready for trouble. So you get the feeling that whatever it was chose the wrong yard there in Vegas. But I will say this incident, and by the way, CJ, I'm getting my best non-answer ready here. This incident reminded me, believe it or not, of the Travis Walton story. Here's this group of folks. They see a bright light in the sky. They say, what was this? Let's go investigate. Now, imagine what would have happened back then had there been cell phones. All right. And Travis Walton and them went and investigated. And I can't help but wonder if we were really close to a similar situation. If we believe the Travis Walton story, we believe that this group of friends encountered something similar and coworkers. And they went to investigate. And what they saw shocked them. They saw Travis Walton knocked to the ground, and they got out of there. And when they came back, he was gone. And he was gone for days, and they were almost charged with murder. When, of course, this is 2023, and this would have all been captured on cell phone footage. And what would have the country have made of that? And were we close to seeing some sort of modern-day Travis Walton situation play out in Las Vegas, Nevada? I don't know, but that's what it reminded me of.
Matt.
My answer is not nearly as much fun. I believe we see a meteorite that contained copper, which is why it glows green. I've seen them myself numerous times. I believe you had a little bit of alien hysteria because of all the UFO talk in the media and the news. I think the same thing happened after War of the Worlds came out on the radio. Everybody was seeing aliens in their backyard. I don't really think this was a hoax. I just think it was some scared people because they saw a shooting star and didn't know what it was. They just immediately went to UFO and got freaked out.
Money.
But I could be wrong.
Well, that's unlikely that you're wrong, man.
I know.
That's stretching things a little bit.
I just wanted to make people feel better.
Okay. I think it's a good take. I mean, it's a fair take for sure. And I think, just as you pointed out, the coincidental timing of it was really strange. You had the Grush story breaking, like, I think the same day or the day, but I mean, it was like
it's just after, like a day
back
later.
to back, right? Yeah, a day later.
Yeah,
and
Grush happened first, and then this happened.
Yeah. Exactly, and this story got all the media attention. So, yeah, just kind of odd. I did think it was. I leaned toward the hoax initially, but now I'm not so sure, just because all the family was seemingly involved in the police response and the sincerity that you see on that body cam footage. It's strange, very strange. But this is like the phenomena, right? It's like phenomenon 101. You know, there's always something like it's a little bit weird about what's going on. There's an eyewitness experience. There's also like a meteorological moment or whatnot that can discount that experience, and we have to sort of weigh all these different factors to come to a conclusion. It's frustrating.
I think I'm about to win a waffle fries from Dr. Mounce with this answer. But I think that, and maybe even like the grilled chicken Chick-fil-A sandwich. But I first of all, I don't really think about it. I saw it and I just was not impressed with it. It looked like a ruse to me. It looked like something that may have been used. I'm going to go a little bit conspiracy theorist here. Something to counter-program Grush's disclosure. And because I had people, for example, I have a friend, Navy SEAL buddy of mine, and the Grush story was not on the news channel that he frequents, and you can just kind of take a guess at what that one might be. And then all of a sudden, he does contact me and literally sends me the video of this and says, "Hey, what do you think of this?" So I think that one was meant to get out and possibly to counter-program Grush's revelations and his disclosures. And I really don't put anything in it. There have been hundreds of thousands of UFO sightings all over the world that we've heard. And we've heard police recordings up to and including Calvin Parker and what's that guy's name? Hickson, I think is his last name. So we've heard, many of these things. And so, okay, is just another one. And it may have even been put out there and timed to sort of take some of the edge off of news agencies picking up on Grush's story. Who goes after me? Debs.
I'm going to throw another conspiracy theory out there. How to normalize UFOs and aliens interacting with humanity by throwing out more stories like that to the point where people are like, oh, it's just another one, right? So you may never know which ones are the real ones. And I do think that family did look awfully freaked out. You know, I think it was also a meteorite, but there could have been more than one object. But my point is, I feel like that's a tactic too. Like that's how you normalize the topic. You just keep throwing stories like that out there until everyone's like, okay, it's another day with an alien.
I say give her a large waffle fries. So, I mean,
I would be remiss if I didn't point out that Avi Loeb has just finished a search for a meteorite that crashed off Papua New Guinea that he says could be proof of alien technology. So I do not think that meteorite and UFO are mutually exclusive.
Okay.
Great point. Great point.
Yep. I tell you what, guys, this is probably this is 2.5 hours, probably one of the longer shows we've ever done, but it was a hell of a lot of fun, and we had a lot of laughs. So with that, I say we go with Cabby goodbyes. Matt.
Yeah, it's been fun. You guys are awesome. Hey, man, it's past my bedtime, all right? I'm trying to keep it short and to the point. So bye, y'all.
I'm going to get you tucked in. Leslie,
I respect
tuck him
that.
in. Okay. Debs.
I'm just grateful that we have each other, like all the people in the community to deal with these things, because there's just like it's mind-boggling sometimes, and there's plenty of people who are just going about their day not worrying about it, and to me that's mind-boggling too, by the way. So I just appreciate everyone coming to talk to us about that, and that we're doing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Debs. And Dr. Taylor, I'll call you tomorrow. But Nathan, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, amen to that. I know we started this podcast with a cage match intention, but I feel like we left as friends, and it really makes me happy. You guys are terrific and good sports for being with us for this long on this evening. And like DJ said, we look forward to the next one. I think it's going to be a wonderful conversation, and I have a feeling we'll have a lot more to talk about. That this isn't going away, so look forward to that.
No doubt. It's funny. I was just telling Meredith For Real, another podcaster whom we made friends with. She came on here. Then we had her co-host. And then when the Grush thing came out, she had me on her show. And I said, there's few things in life that I enjoy more than making new friends. They're just, because I have a wife, but I don't have children. The blessing that y'all have. And so one of the things that it sort of makes me the most happy is making new friends. And I think that's what we've done. I was able to start it off with Tim, Dr. Mounce the other night, and now with you guys. So thank you so much. It's an honor that you would come and share your time with us and your thoughts and your intellect. Thank you for what you guys are doing as well in the community. Tim writing books for kids is just such a noble pursuit. And we look forward to the next time, okay? All right, so for Matt, Nathan, Debs, CJ, Smitty, Dr. Mounce, this is DJ saying peace out, one love. We'll see you down the road, and as always, we're wondering what's up around the bend.